Yes, if I disappeared, that's why. Right. Hello. Hopefully this will kick over onto YouTube in just a minute, but if you're watching the playback, hello. Welcome to another round of lots of recommendations.
Yes.
Which will be fun. All right.
I think we're
Would everyone like to introduce themselves and then we will get started?
Sure. I'll start since I'm right next to you. I am Bree. My channel is in 11 words. Obviously, I read a lot of romance. I also read a lot of nonfiction books. And lately I've been, actually right now we're filming, Steph and I and a couple of other friends are filming a Stuff Your Kindle reading vlog where we're reading all the books. Well, not all the books, obviously, but a lot of the books that we got from Stuff Your Kindle. Stuff Your Kindle, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, is Heather's favorite thing.
I can't believe you left me out of this collab. That's so rude.
I left you out of this collab. I was like, you know what? You're not invited to this. No, Heather absolutely hates it because it's basically us downloading a ton of books that we're probably never going to read, which is Heather's worst nightmare. So
I would like to point out I read 9 of them in 3 days.
Nice. See?
Stuff you're the exception.
You're
allowed to do whatever you want.
Well, no, because I kind of agree with Heather in that, like, I don't agree with downloading stuff that you're never going to read.
Yeah.
But I do download them to try new authors. So
yeah. I agree because I am afraid I have FOMO and I'm like, but what if this is the book of my life? And what if I pick it up? And what if it's amazing? And it's free. Like, but it's just taking up space on my Kindle and my Kindle has like unlimited space, basically. I feel like I will never fill up my Kindle. So
yeah, my Kindle will die before I fill it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think so. Your turn, Robin.
I'm Robin. I'm from Paperbacks and Planners on YouTube and Instagram. I also read almost exclusively romance. I'm not doing the Stuff Your Kindle vlog. I didn't do Stuff Your Kindle.
Look, the two sane people down here.
Yes, me and Robin. I can't figure out.
I know, I never know.
I flipped my camera so that I can actually figure out. It's in the settings.
My brain tries really hard, but it can't. I'm Heather from He Booktubes, or HE Booktubes, and I also read romance, which is what I assume why I'm here. I did get one free book because Vina at Miss WOC Reader talked me right into it. She was like, I only got this one. And then she sent me the link. I'm like reading the synopsis. I'm like, well, you actually sound really good. I want to know.
This is what I'm saying. I'm so afraid I will miss out. Like, I read every single one of the keywords for every single one of the books on that freakishly long time. Because I was like, but what if?
The only book I got was Evie Mitchell's first in Capricorn Cove, but that was already on my like Kindle list over on Amazon. So
yeah. I feel like someone has to tell me something about the book that piques my interest, which is why even like posts are just like, here's all these books. I never read anything from them because I don't know anything about it, and I can't be bothered to find anything out. So
I had keywords and other people picking out books that they were interested in, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good, and that was about it.
That's why I like the Instagram trend where people started doing the arrows and they're like, here's all the tropes, because I'm like, now I know if I want to read it.
Yes.
I DNF a lot of those books, but I do pick them up.
Thank you, Beth.
All right.
Only 30 bucks.
Heather.
Oh my God. Heather's going to like start tweaking out in a second.
Okay, we'll move on.
More books that I download in a year. That is so disturbing.
Heather, I'm going to count how many I downloaded and I'm going to send it to you just to torture you.
Just to watch aneurysm on camera.
I can't.
I'm Steph. This is my channel. Welcome. I'm the host of this brand of chaos. A little bit different from our journaling videos, but maybe not quite as much as we would probably think. So if you have not seen the previous live where we recommended a book for every letter of the alphabet, which essentially is 4 books for every letter of the alphabet, and went for about 2.5 hours, make sure you have a drink and some snacks, and we may need to take a very short break in the middle if we haven't decided yet. So yes, we basically recommend a book for every letter of the alphabet. My rules when I've done it on my own, as long as the letter is somewhere on the front cover, I allow it because some letters are very, very difficult. And this is my 6th round. So I think you guys are getting the hockey edition.
So like have a list ready, have a pen and paper ready, have Goodreads up, Amazon up, wherever, so that you can start taking notes on these books. Because obviously we're not going to be able to show the...
Well, I can put Goodreads up, or I can take the notes. So I can put them all in the description. But I'll put good notes up if you guys like. Good notes, Goodreads. Oh my god.
Yeah, I can send you my list afterwards.
I'll send you my list after too.
Yeah. Well, if you guys send me the list afterwards, and then I will compile it, but I will bring Goodreads up if my internet decides to behave itself. And just don't judge me all the books that it says I'm currently reading, because I'm not currently reading any of them. They're all finished.
I went to your Goodreads to look at books to send you, and it was like currently reading 9 books, and I was like, stop.
I'm not. I finished all of them. I just have not. Don't mind me. Those are all the physical books, and because they don't automatically finish when I have finished them, I'm like, I'll go through them at some point. Oh, hang on. Okay, make that bigger. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to see, well, I'll flip through both screens. But anyway, do you want me to start, or do you want to start, Bree, and we'll come back around?
You can start, then we'll just stay in order.
Okay. So my first book was A Lie for a Lie by Helena Hunting, which is a hockey book.
I love it. It's so good.
It is. I will confess, I have read the first book in the Puck series, but I never continued because this was way back when I first started reading romance books. But this one is the first book in the All In series, which is kind of a spin-off, I think, of Pucked, from memory. And it is about Lainey and Rook, who meet while they're on holidays, and they accidentally end up snowed in together because the place that she's staying in is atrocious, and he offers her a place to stay when he finds out. And they sort of have a fling while I think they're in Alaska, from memory. And it's a second chance hockey romance with a surprise baby, and I surprisingly did not hate it. So I appreciated it when they found each other again in their real lives.
Yeah.
So that is my book.
That series is really good if you have a Pucked series hangover, for sure. So mine is Sing Anyway by Anita Kelly. I actually just read this recently because it just came out on audio, and the audiobook is really, really good. This is a karaoke romance, and I happen to love karaoke. I will not get up and like public speak, but I will sing karaoke. We have a plus size fashion designer heroine and a non-binary, kind of shy, like finding themselves love interest. And this was like sweet, steamy, short, and it's on audio now. It's on Hoopla if you have Hoopla.
It's a great book.
I love it. Also, I love that author.
I love that author so much. I love it. Mine is 8 by Rilsey Adams. Is a steamy novella. I think Rilsey Adams is like novella perfection. The way that she can capture a romance in such short number of pages is awesome. And this is a heroine who is celebrating a big win at her job, and she hires a professional chef. And when her friend ditches her and the chef have the steamy dinner together, and it's perfection. I love it.
Unless you don't like food and sex, in which case
unless you don't like
it so much.
The only thing that I wanted more from that book was I just wanted it to be longer because I love the premise so much. That meet cute is so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
All right. Mine is After the Climb, which is River Rain #1 by Kristen Ashley, which is a contemporary romance with characters who are in their 50s, I want to say, for this one. So this is a pretty big content warning because they dated like in their late teens, early 20s, and they had a mutual best friend, and their mutual best friend lied and broke them up. And then it's years and marriages and adult kids and stuff later, and that friend commits suicide and leaves like a will and stuff and makes them reunite in his will to hear what he says. So they've lost him, and he's like and I broke you up and it's time for you to get back together. And so it's like dealing with a lot of anger and grief and also a romance at the same time. And she's like the world's most famous movie star. And she had like this perfect marriage with a tennis star and they have all these kids, and she was also married to a rock star and stuff. And he's like the owner of an outdoor store. And then you get to see like all of their kids and stuff also have romances. So it's really good.
I will be vlogging me reading this book.
I cannot wait for you to be like 5% and be like, this is not for me.
Heather,
rather just
forcing
be
people to
crying
read
for
Kristen
the whole
Ashley.
I definitely cried in this one. Definitely.
But not Heather forcing everyone to read Kristen Ashley.
I just need to preach the message.
All right. So we're up to B. So mine was, I've got to remember the title, Beautiful Things by Emily Rath, which she is the author of Parking Around, which is one of the big hockey books. But this one is, ironically for me, a historical romance, but it's a Why Choose historical romance. And it's set during a Regency era house party. And it is a lot of fun because the heroine is kind of down on her luck and has no idea why she's been invited to this house party, but the matriarch of the family wants to use her for a purpose. And it is very intriguing. It is the first part in a duet, and both books are really great. But it's very much written in a contemporary way. So it got away with being on my historical romance list.
That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. There's 3 books in this series, the Second Son series, but the first 2 go together, and the third one is, I think, about the brother from the first 2 books who starts off kind of as the villain character, but is actually not, and we love him a whole lot.
I'm not big on historical, but when it's written in a contemporary style,
Yeah,
then I can do it.
Yeah, that's why I like Alexis Hall's historical.
Same.
Because they're very contemporary. Mine is Blind Date with a Book Boyfriend by Lucy Eden. This one is short and sweet, and if you love cinnamon roll heroes like I do, you love this one. You have a bookish heroine, and the hero reads romance too, and it's a super cute meet cute in a bookstore, and it's super cute, and I love it. Look at me, I'm going so fast.
Go Bree.
Mine is Bewitched by Thalassa, which is a fantasy romance. And this is the epitome of a enjoyable, like, popcorn fantasy romance where you finish and you're like, I knew where it was going the whole time. It's super predictable, but it's so addicting and good. You're following a heroine who's a witch, but every time she uses her abilities, she loses her memory, and she doesn't know what memory she's going to lose or how many or like how big of a chunk of time. And she accidentally gets this god out of a tomb, and he thinks that she is his wife who entombed him in the first place. And then she goes back to her coven and he follows her there, and people show up dead at the coven, and they're trying to figure out why he thinks she's his wife who's killing all these people, all while she's losing memories along the way.
That sounds super fun.
It's so much fun. It's one of those books where you're like, I knew where this was going. I knew who the heroine was the whole time, but it's just so addicting and so much fun to read that it doesn't even matter, which I feel like is definitely a Thalassa thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, mine is Bash by Casey Mills. This is a Black motorcycle club romance, and she goes to get hired at their club, and she used to be a dancer. She actually used to be a stripper, and she's a single mom, and her baby daddy is like causing her problems, right, and not paying money, so she needs to make more money than she was. And he like lets her audition, and then he's like, no, you're not, you're gonna be mine, you can be a bartender though. And then they have like a super instant over the top alpha obsessive romance. Also, he like beats people for her, so I enjoyed it.
I like that cover too.
It's a great cover.
It's also
right.
like very addictive writing, I will say.
I feel like motorcycle romances can be a little hit or miss because sometimes they take themselves too seriously.
Right.
Yeah, it's not very extreme with the misogyny.
Okay, yeah, that's my main issue with motorcycle classes.
I mean, Bree, you won't like it because it's too alpha.
Okay.
But if like you like alpha, but you don't want some of the junk, like this one's not bad.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we're on to C. And oh no, not that. Jeez, Steph, learn to type. I don't know what that is. Oh, that's a sci-fi. Let's not go there. Now it's not going to pick it up. Anyway, mine is Consider Me by Becca Mac, which is kind of another one that is really popular in the hockey romance sphere. I thought it was okay. It was like a 4.5. And it is a hockey romance. The hero is very much a golden retriever in this one. And he falls first for the heroine, which is probably why I appreciated it a lot, because he starts off as the bad boy and ends up just falling for her completely.
Mine is The Comeback by Lily Chu. So this one has I'm going to be honest, I liked the first book that I read by Lily Chu. I don't know if I think it is related to the first book, but I picked it up because I love Philippa So. I'm a big Hamilton nerd. And Philippa is so freaking good at narrating. I love Philippa as in musicals and everything, but she needs to narrate all the audiobooks because she's so good. But this has a K-pop hero, and that was super fun. I don't normally like fame romances, but I actually really like this one. And the heroine's a lawyer, but it's really good. And the hero's kind of quirky.
And mine is actually also an Audible original.
Oh yeah,
Coming Home by Kennedy Ryan.
Oh yeah, I like that one too.
This is a second chance romance between these main characters who were really good friends in college, and they just had really bad timing. Like one of them was always seeing somebody else, and then he ended up going to, I think, Paris, and he has a daughter. And years pass, and they are back at their college for a 100-year reunion or something like that, and they get their second chance romance. This is absolutely no angst from Kennedy Ryan. This is just like a good time. Kennedy Ryan always writes emotional romances. That's not what this is. It is just them finally getting the timing right in their life. And there's so much like fun college nostalgia in there. So I loved that aspect.
Yeah.
Even though my college was nothing like that, I immediately wanted to go to a college reunion because it's fun.
Is this Kennedy Ryan's only non-angsty book?
As far as I know.
I think the only one that I can think of, that one had angst in it too. Never mind. Yeah, I think this might be the only one.
And the narrators are so good. These are two of my favorite narrators. So
Wesley Chabon
she could narrate everything, and I would listen to it.
I love her.
All right, I can add that one to my list.
Yeah,
there's also music elements because the marching band and stuff is a big part of it, and so there's you can hear the music and stuff like that. It's very well done.
Nice.
Crystal agrees. Only non-angsty.
Mine is Counterfeit Love by Jessica Gadziala. This is a romantic suspense with a cinnamon roll hero and a prickly heroine. So I feel like if that's your vibe, that's something you want. It doesn't show up in romantic suspense very much. It also works very well as a standalone. So he is a counterfeiter, and she is trying to take down the client of sex trafficking because she is a survivor. And she figures if they don't have anyone to sell to, that's better than just taking out the people that are selling. So she blackmails him into helping her, and then he gets kidnapped and she rescues him. I love that. And also he's like a goofball that is very jokey, but he knows if what she needs is a joke and if what she needs is for him to take things seriously and let her get this done or whatever. I really just loved the way that he treated her and was conscious of her emotions. Beautiful.
Was the first book good?
What?
Was the first book good?
I don't know.
Hang on. Did I read the first book?
This author has been on my TBR.
Oh yeah, no, the first book is good.
Okay, I will read that one as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You don't need to read them in order.
Okay.
I read Counterfeit Love first.
Okay.
I think because Heather told me to.
Yeah.
All right. So my next book is Professional Development by Kate Canterbury. Let's see if I can. Typing and talking at the same time is not a skill set that I have.
I need to read more Kate Canterbury, so.
I don't know if it's going to come up. Oh, okay. Anyway, it's not going to come up. I'll find it later.
We don't
It
know.
is a novella, and it is one of my exceptions to my I don't read books about teachers romances, because it's the first book in the Benchmark series. It is a workplace rivalry romance between two teachers who are kind of, I think they're heads of their department, but they're sent to a conference together. And on the way back from the conference, there's some really bad weather and it forces them to stay in a motel overnight with only one bed. And it is absolutely delightful.
I love that. Love the only one bed trope. Mine is Dungeon Daddy by Golden Angel. So this is a mature romance, and it is this book has a lot of tropes that I do not like, and there are a lot of things I probably shouldn't like, but God damn it if I didn't enjoy this book. So if you like Dungeons and Dragons, by the way, this couple plays D&D with the Dungeons and Doms. I think this whole series is about like the people who play D&D together, which is my favorite thing because I played D&D for the first time recently. But it's a marriage in trouble, and the heroine thinks that he's cheating, but he's not, and so she like ends up doing this glow up thing, and he's like, why is she doing this glow up thing? So there's like miscommunication and like there's stupid stuff in it, but I'm just like, I could not put it down, and I loved it. So, and I also want to read all the other books, and this was my first book that I read by Golden Angel, and I actually got to meet Golden Angel at Shameless, and I really enjoyed talking to her. So
is this going to be the inspiration for our romance?
I was going to say, did you recommend this to your D&D group?
Yes, I do. See, okay. See how it has the what is that thing called? The dice in the background.
Yeah.
The D20. I had no idea. When I read Dungeon Daddy, I was thinking BDSM because that's where my head goes. But then when I showed it to my husband's friend who is a DM for Dungeons and Dragons, he was like, that it has a D20 in the background. Of course it's about Dungeons and Dragons. Like for some reason that just completely, I didn't even see it. I don't know.
That's funny because when you said dungeon, I was like, this is either D&D or BDSM.
Right.
It could go either way.
Or both.
Yeah, I would just assume it was both, honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
You know?
Mine is Dear Emmy Blue by Leah Lewis. This kind of goes back and forth between contemporary and sorry, I just read that comment. This kind of goes ties or walks the line between romance and contemporary. I would say it's more contemporary with a romance, but this is following this girl who had this really hard childhood, and at one point she releases this red balloon with a phone number on it, and somebody in a different country ends up finding that balloon and note, and they end up forming this really long distance friendship. And when they get older, she has developed this massive crush on him, and he tells her that he has some big news that he wants to share with her, and she thinks that he is professing his feelings, and instead he asks her to be the best man in his wedding to this girl that she didn't even know existed. And through all of that, she actually ends up falling in love with his brother. And it was amazing. It has a lot of like emotional elements to it, but it's not like sad. It's more just millennials kind of figuring themselves out and her finding her place and family and all of that. And it's really, really good. There's also an old lady neighbor best friend that they end up like hanging out with and playing cards with and drinking with. And she's super sassy and I loved her.
But did you cry while you read this at any point?
Yes, but I cried everything.
I just needed to know.
Okay, if anyone's worried that it's going to be sad, I cried at the end because I was so happy that they fell in love.
So it was happy tears.
Romance, and she cried that they were happy they fell. She was happy they fell in love.
I was happy that they fell in love. It's one of those, like, the journey for them to get there is like, it's long. And so when they finally got together, I was like, at least you finally found each other.
I love that for you.
It's great though.
All right, mine is Demon's Dream by Elle, Kayson. This is, if you, probably maybe two of you, if you were on my Black Aweenathon reading sprints last October, this is the 787 page, 68 page book that I was hoping so hard to DNF in like the first chapter, and it was so good, and I like couldn't. It's two romances though. It is legitimately two romance books in one. So you have the two couples, you have 4 POVs, and then you also have some other random side POVs, but each one is in chronological order. So whatever we're getting from, even though we're following two couples, we're following them simultaneously, and each one is like moving us along the time frame. And it's the two daughters of this like crime lord, and he has arranged marriages for them, or for one of them, and she's supposed to be arranged. And then her brother goes and elopes with another crime lord's daughter, and they're like, he's going to kill you. Like, you're dead. They're like, your love is not going to save you. So the dad is like, okay, well, we can work this out. And the crime lord is like, well, she can be the payment, not for me though, because like I'm happily married and no, but my brother, he needs a loving touch. So his dad didn't know about him, so his brother suffered like a lot of childhood abuse, like everything that you can think of. And so the content warnings for this are extreme. I mean, they're not extreme, because I don't really read extreme, but he goes through a lot, and you get some of that in flashbacks and stuff, right? So he's demon, she's dream. And then also her sister that's arranged to marry someone else is not going to marry him. And it's going to marry someone else instead. So it's really good. Really, really good.
I remember you reading this one and just being like, no, it was supposed to be bad.
Hema Shades and Pages was like, it's the best book of the year. And I was like, immediately yes. And then I saw the length and I was like, but she said it was so good. I was like, no, you really talked me into it. I have to at least try. And she was right. I will give her that. She was right.
Is there an audiobook for it?
I have no idea. Probably not, because it is indie, but I don't know.
Okay.
As you know, I don't know what has audiobooks or not.
I absolutely thought this was going to be like Sing Me to Sleep, where it was like a demon that comes in your dreams.
No,
like that's why.
And he's so like push you up against the wall, and like I'm like, oh my god.
This is, in fact, the very long one that everyone was talking about last October.
Good.
See, I never know whether to be disappointed or just really impressed when the really long books that you want to go, no, that can't possibly be good, are really damn good.
I know.
All right. So for E, I had The Enforcer by Avery Keelan. Let's see if it'll come up. Again, it's a hockey romance. This one's a college hockey romance, and it's a second chance between the hero and the heroine, who I think they were dating, like you have like a prologue, and they were dating earlier on, and they had a really messy breakup. And then it's the final year of college, and I know Heather is not there, but she doesn't like prologues when that happens. But anyway, that's fine. Let's go with it. But she is assigned to work with his hockey team as part of her senior athletic training internship. So they're forced to spend time together, and he's a very grumpy and overprotective hero, and it's kind of a slow burn.
Love it. So mine's cheating a little. Well, it's not really cheating, but it's like kind of deep into a series, but you can read it as a standalone if you want, but the whole series is really good, so you may as well just read the whole series. It's Everything for You by Chloe Liese, Liese is one of my all-time favorite authors. I love her so very much. This is a male-male romance, and it's a soccer romance. And it is, if you guys like Ted Lasso, it's like Roy and Jamie romance. It's so freaking good. And one of the heroes is dealing with chronic pain. The other one is lactose intolerant. And there are cute kids in the background, and it's really good. I love this one. It's one of my favorites in that series.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you haven't got your mic on, Robin.
Muted.
I clicked it like 3 times, apparently. I just kept turning it on and off. Mine is Egotistical Puckboy by Eden Finley and Saxon James. This is technically book 1 in a series and book like 9,000 in the Eden Finley and Saxon James.
9,000.
She's not kidding.
All of their series technically intertwined, but you don't really need to read any of them in order. You just get the cameos if you read them in order. But this is a, I don't want to say alpha romance because that's not quite right, but they're both insanely egotistical and they don't get along and they end up getting together because hate sex. And then they end up on the same team and then they have to make it work. That's great. Yeah. This series is hilarious. The second book is my favorite. So if you read this one, read the second one right away.
I like all the books in the series.
I've only read through 2 because then I was like, what if I started at the beginning?
Hang on, isn't book 3 the Vegas wedding?
Nope, that's book 2. That one's
my favorite. Book 2. Yep. Okay, yeah, book 2 is pretty good. This is what Robin means. All of the like I forget which order they go in because all the characters turn up in all of them. But yes, the Vegas wedding is very funny.
Did one of you do the Enforcer? Is that why it's in the comments?
Yes.
You suck.
No, you can do the Enforcer.
The Enforcer by Katrina Jackson.
Oh no, different Enforcer.
Oh. The Enforcer by Katrina Jackson is the family. It's technically number 3, but you can read it numbers 2. They're all different family members, and they go to Italy, and then they individually fall in love with different members of the mafia. I have to go help a child, but she is a fat Black woman that does not want to have kids. He's a submissive hero, and it's mafia, and he's Italian, and he's into pain, and she's into exhibitionism, and it's insta love. All right, bye.
Sold.
Heather did that really well.
Yeah, it's submissive hero. So
yeah.
Okay, so my next one is Famous in a Small Town by Kylie Scott. This is a small town rock star romance, but it's more that he's trying to hide out from his career. And he ends up moving in next door to the heroine. So it's a neighbors / friends to lovers romance with a grumpy hero. No third act breakup in it. There is an accidental pregnancy. Again, I did not hate this one because I loved everything else about their relationship. And it was really fun. And it is not long. It is fairly short.
Nice. So mine is actually one that hasn't come out yet. I actually read an arc. It was ALC, it was audio, so that's why I read it. But this is 100% a cover by. It's Forget Me Not by Julie Soto. This one was so freaking good, and I was so glad that it was as good as the cover is because the cover is absolutely stunning. But this one has a grumpy hero with a heart. He's a florist, and he's like all tattooed and super cute. And then the heroine is a wedding planner, and it's a second chance romance. It's really, really good. Highly recommend. And it comes out on July 11th, I think.
I love that one so much.
It was so good.
Audiobook is really good too. If you want an audiobook yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mine is Galen by Jacqueline Osborne, which is an angel romance. It is following these 7 brothers. They're not really brothers, but they all are the embodiments of the 7 deadly sins. And they are all getting the romance as the son of Lucifer is trying to take over the world.
Intrigue.
They are all, none of these have third act breakups in them either. The romances kind of all come to fruition about 3/4 of the way through, and then the last quarter is like the plot of Lucifer's son doing, anarchy in the world. So no third act breakups either.
Are they all MM?
They are all MM.
Okay.
I have Fans Only by B Love, which is a riff on OnlyFans, obviously. It's a novella that's friends to lovers. They're in the same friend group. They've never like really gone along. And they both need money. And they're like, well, you know what? We could do this. And they do. And he takes a lot of care with her and, remaining anonymous and just making sure that she's comfortable and safe and consent and all of that. And also he pays for all of her hair and nails and massages and, spa days and stuff. Like he just takes really good care of her. And because he treats her so well, that's why they fall in love. And it's really steamy and really cute.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that I remember about this, well, no, I remember a lot about this, but it's super, super steamy. But I remember thinking while I was reading this, I'm like, she is going to get a UTI.
I just pretend like those don't even exist in romance books. I can't.
I know.
There's no consensus on them in romance books. It's just I don't know, whatever. I'll stick a strawberry in there. It'll be fine.
Why did no one yell at me for doing G and not F?
I thought it was because it was Sons of the Fallen.
No, I had an F1.
Well, now you can do F1 after.
I'll just swap them. Just pretend they're wrong.
That's okay. At least it wasn't me first this time. All right. So G. So I have Game Plan by Amy Aislinn. I actually prefer this cover because it's cuter. But this is book 1 in the Vancouver Orca series. It is a spin-off of her previous series, and I can't remember what it's called because it's not in my head. But it is an MM romance. This is between a hockey coach who is the head coach of an AHL team and the father of one of the players on his team. And it's a second chance romance. They actually knew each other years before. And then the son comes to play for the team and the father moves back into town and they reconnect. But this one does have content warnings in it for depression, and there's quite a nasty divorce in it as well, which has helped, which is the spiral for the depression. And it's about them sort of finding their way back to each other and dealing with that, and sort of the consequences of him falling for, or the coach falling for the father of a player. But it was really good. And the one thing Amy Aislinn does with her hockey romance is she has a really wide range of representation in terms of a lot of her characters. Even though they're MM, there's a lot of pansexual rep, ace, bisexual rep, and it's done really well. So I appreciate that.
Okay. So mine is Guarding Temptation by Talia Hibbert. I read this a really long time ago, but when I came across it, I was like, oh man, I love that book. So this is Brother's Best Friend. If you like a hero who's trying to stay away but can't, I love that type of thing, and that this book has it. It's bodyguard kind of more protector kind of thing. There's an age gap, and we also have a big boy hero, which I love.
My F1 was The Fiancé Farce by Alexandra Bellafleur, which is a female romance. One of our heroines owns a bookstore, and she is trying to get her family off her back because they keep asking her if she's going to start dating. And so she lies and says that she has a girlfriend. And she uses the cover model of one of the romances as her fake girlfriend. And then she ends up meeting that cover model at a wedding. And she just goes with it. And she's like, sure, I can be your girlfriend, but I need you to marry me so that I can get my family's inheritance. And so they end up having a fake engagement and falling in love. And it's really cute. It's really funny. It is not connected to Alexandra Bellafleur's other romances, but it's very bookish and sweet and steamy as well. And actually a steamy sapphic romance.
Nice. I love that cover too.
It's a beautiful cover.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is The Gorison Traveler Incident by Lauren Donner. This is a alien romance, and they live on this spaceship, and they have these aliens on for like a peace treaty type thing, and it's not his group that like starts to eat everybody. It's a different one, but he ends up rescuing her basically, and they're fade mates. Well, no, that's not true. First, they're locked in the prison and she helps them escape. And he's like, "You're my fade mate. I can't leave you." He leaves her. And then he comes back and rescues her when everybody's dying. So there you go.
All right. Sorry, I'm just too busy laughing. Okay. I nearly jumped a letter because I'm like, got distracted. So for H, Heather will be happy because it is Hitting the Wall by Kate C. Wells because she finally made me read it. And I enjoyed every second of it. So it's the first book in the Stonecut County series by Kate C. Wells. It is a second chance small town romance. You have one of the deputy sheriffs of the town is kind of the golden boy, but a few years earlier he had a one-night stand with a girl in town and she got pregnant, but she was, remind me if I'm right, Heather, she was 17.
Ish. I don't know.
Ish.
Ish.
Ish. Anyway, she got run out of town by his family and the sheriff at the time because they didn't want to ruin his reputation. And she ends up coming back to town with the daughter who is autistic and is just precious. And when he sees her, he recognizes the girl straight away because she looks like his younger sister. And he becomes really determined to take care of them. And she is very reluctant to get involved or to have anything to do with his family, rightly so. And he is okay with that because he wants her rather than what his family have done. And it's great. Like, I cried. I cried. So.
Do you cry often in books, Steph? You don't cry that often when you read, right?
I get teary. I do get teary. I don't tend to mention it. If I'm just teary, I don't mention it. But like, if I'm full on crying, I'll say it.
Right.
There's a handful of books that do that to me, and I tend to read them over and over again because I'm that person.
So mine is another arc that comes out on the same day, July 11th. This one, I, again, had an advanced listener's copy of it. It's Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I love Catherine Center. If you like, this borders on like contemporary fiction, but it definitely has a very heavy romantic element in it. And it's like the main plot of it. But this was just so unique, such a unique romance. And it had a really, really great meet cute. If you like pets and dogs, there's like a super cute dog that's involved. The heroine's a quirky artist. And there is big trigger warning for a serious medical condition that plays a really big part in this book. And I related to it. It's not, I don't have any, like, I can't I can't speak for the representation of this one as far as like the medical condition she has. And I forget the name of it, but it's neurological related. And I have MS, and I just related so heavily to a sudden onset of a neurological issue, especially that involves vision. So I related to that. And she has like a panic attack at one point, and I just related to that heavily. But the romance was just so good. And like I said, it was super, super unique. And it's a book that I couldn't stop thinking about after I read it. So highly recommend reading this when it comes out.
I love her book covers as well.
I know, me
It's
too.
pretty.
My H1 is How to Say I Do by Tel Bauer, which is his latest romance. And this is probably the least angsty Tel Bauer romance that he's done. He says that it's a rom-com. That might be a stretch, but it is following these two guys. One is at the airport going to Cancun a couple of days before his brother's wedding, and he finds this other guy completely wasted at the airport bar, and he helps him get on the plane and all of that. And when they get off the plane, they get into the limo together. And when they get out of the limo at the resort, everyone at the resort thinks that they are married because the guy that was drunk at the bar just got stood up at the altar and decided to take his honeymoon anyways. And so now everyone thinks that they were just married. And they decide to do all of the honeymoon activities together while they are there. And then they slowly get feelings for each other. This has what I call friends being friends, where one of the main characters is convinced that their actions are totally platonic when they're not even remotely platonic because they have a tickle fight. And then when they go back to reality, it is essentially whether or not they can make it work and how they make it work. And it is very well done. And I didn't cry at this one, so
Wow.
that's a new thing for a Tal Bauer book.
I'm really disappointed that in myself that I have not read this yet.
It's so good. It's great. There's also like some wedding elements in here. One of the guys is in social media for like influencers, and the other guy runs a winery and loves his nephew, and it's just, they're both adorable. I loved it.
I've been watching you guys read this author and talk about how like emotional you are about it. I'm like, no.
This one is actually not that emotional. There's really no parts of this one except for like he lost his dad or something. Like there's no emotional elements to this one.
Yeah.
He has written my favorite book of the year, Heather.
I know.
Yeah, mine too.
I've been watching you guys and I'm like, no. I can't. I have to do it by accident. You can't warn me ahead of time. All right. Mine is Held in Contempt by Ava Cherie, which is a recommendation from Tracy at Bookin' to Bookin' on Instagram, so you should follow her if you don't. This is a erotic Black love novella, and it has like handcuffs and stuff on the cover, but it's not a cop romance or anything. It's a like lawyer romance, and it has a twist in it that made it 5 stars for me, and that I was like screaming at my book. I was like, what are you even talking about right now? So I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's
How do you spell
What was it called, Heather?
Held in Contempt by
Held
Ava
in
Cherie.
Hang on.
That one, yeah. Like I said, it's lawyers. It is not cop, but it's very steamy. And then there was like some things that was like, you really got me.
You got me.
So it's good. I can't tell you why it's good, but it's good.
That's okay. Sometimes the mystery is enough. All right. So mine for I is In the Lives of Puppets. I won't hold it up because it's on the screen. So this is TJ Kling's most recent one, and honestly, my favorite part of the book is probably one of the minor details of the book, but it's about a human who is raised by a bunch of robots in a remote forest, and he finds the remains of an android sort of in a dumping ground, and he brings it back, and he brings the android back to life. And then they discover that there is a lot more going on beyond the forest than what they first thought. The main character is Ace, and the robots are absolutely precious because there's a tiny little vacuum robot who is absolutely neurotic and is just the highlight of the entire book.
I was curious. I had no idea what this one was about. I only just realized that TJ had come out with a new book, and I was like, what's this one about?
There is a romance thread in here. It's a very small one, but it is very much like a Pinocchio.
Yeah, I was gonna say he pitched it as a Pinocchio retelling.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. So mine is In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This is the second book in the Love Light Farms series. You don't have to read them in order, but Love Light Farms is really good. It's a really good Friends Lovers. But this one is a small town romance. The hero is a very grumpy hero, but he's a grumpy hero with a heart. And the heroine is an influencer. So it's kind of like opposites attract. You have a lot of meddling neighbors. There is forced proximity in this. And if you love Roy Kent and or Luke Danes from Gilmore Girls, and Roy Kent is from Ted Lasso, you'll love this hero because I feel like he is the perfect mix of both of them. It is really, really good. I kind of just picked this up on a whim. I wasn't going to continue with this series, but I picked this up on a whim and fell in love with it. It's on Hoopla too.
I want to continue that series.
Yeah, I just got this book.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I just got it from Berkeley.
Oh, good.
And now I need to read it.
Yes, you do.
My iBook is Yours Insatiably by Aveda Vice, which is book 1 in her Things with Benefits series. Their Things with Benefits series, sorry. It's also book 1 after Feed, and this one follows a non-binary main character and a succubus heroine who in the novella end up having a one night because the succubus uses this monster app to bring people to her house so that she can feed. And it is a coworker that she does not get along with. And they love to antagonize her. Like that is their favorite thing. They love to antagonize her. And the two of them end up having an amazing romance. And the moth main character kind of helps her embrace her monstrous side. And this is some of my favorite non-binary rep, just how Aveda Vice handled the gendering of the moth main character, because they identify as he, they. And so that is something that is very prevalent throughout the book, depending on the day. And there is an ending part where they are separated and they write love letters back and forth. And it was the most precious thing ever.
I'm dying over that cover.
Also, the new Klitsch covers are amazing.
I'm dying. I hadn't seen it before. I saw the old ones, but I hadn't.
Yeah. There's also, I need to get that print, Heather, because it's my favorite. There's also one for the second book as well. And the third one is in the works.
Do you know if they're coming out with audiobooks for these?
I joined Aveda's Patreon for a month, and I meant to ask them, and I forgot. I'll have to message because I'm still technically in the Discord.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen any.
I've never seen any talk of it.
It's expensive. I don't blame them.
Yeah, and their books are long. Like these books are not short, so they would be, I think, expensive to make audiobooks for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine is I'll Never Be Your Crown Princess, which is a very explicit, steamy fantasy manga, which obviously I got from Izzy at Happy for Now.
Obviously.
I get all my manga recommendations from. But there's 2 volumes right now, and basically she's reincarnated. So she lived in Japan in her human life, and now she's this duchess, and she's supposed to marry the crown prince or whatever, and she's like, no. She's never met him. She's like, no. So she goes to this party to lose her virginity because she can't marry him. She's not a virgin. And it's him in disguise. And they have like this whole magic thing where like they're fated mates, but it can only happen during the taking of the virginity. It's very dramatic. I don't care. I still liked it.
All right. The next one will not be a surprise. So for Jay, I had In a Jam by Kate Canterbury, which is another one of my favorites of the year. And I totally have to credit my friend Kirsty, who used to be on BookTube but is no longer on BookTube, because she read it and went, you need to read this. And I did. And now I have totally badgered so many people into reading it and will continue to do so. It is a small town marriage of convenience romance between Noah, who has taken custody of his niece because her mother is in prison, and the heroine is Shay, who comes to town. She used to live in the same town as Noah, I think, for like a year or 2, and her grandmother passes away and leaves her property with the condition that she gets to keep it after a year if she is married. And she comes across Noah, and they were sort of friends for that time when she was in town, and he's very grumpy and standoffish. He runs a very successful farm. He is absolutely precious. I love him so much. His niece is 5 and swears like a sailor, and is utterly adorable. And Shay spends some time helping tutoring her over the holiday break because she's not doing so well, and there is some neurodiverse rep in there for the niece. But it is so good. I've read it twice, and I need to read it again because I want to annotate my copy of the book because I haven't done that yet.
That's so good. I was not expecting to love this one as much as I did.
Yeah.
Canterbury is really solid. Like I think it's surprising because you don't hear her books talked about very often. And this was the second book of hers that I'd read, and then I read Professional Development as well.
The only reason I didn't recommend this one is because I figured
I
how are we going to? So it's really good.
I went through my list and I was surprised I hadn't put it on a list yet.
I just love him too because he's just like, I can't believe I'm marrying the girl of my dreams, and she thinks it's just for her farm.
And also, like, when we talk about grand gestures in romance, his grand gesture was something he never knew that she would see. Yeah. And when she finally figures it out, and I was just like over here bawling my eyes out.
It's so sweet.
Anyway. So, all right. So mine is Just for Tonight by Rosie Adams. It was really hard not to put, I feel like I could do a Rosie Adams book for almost all of these. So it's really hard not to have a million of them. But I love this one. It's a Destination Wedding, and they're friends of the bride and groom. And so they kind of like have crossed paths, but I don't know. I can't remember if they've ever met before this, but they cross paths, and the hero is a photographer, and it's a novella, and the hero is a dirty talker, and it's really, really good. And it's super short. It's only 42 pages. And especially, I have a thing for like weddings and romances, and this is my faves.
Mine is the Hollow Knight series by Liese, or the first one's Hallows Grove. This is a series of standalones. They're not connected in any way. They're all they take place around their respective holidays. And I think there's 5 more coming yet, if I remember correctly from her stories. This first book is set around Halloween, and we are following a heroine who begrudgingly agrees to go to this murder mystery party with her best friend. And while she is there, she ends up having a ridiculously steamy encounter with said best friend's brother, who is a pleasure dom. And the whole series is amazing. All of them kind of have like a different kink. Like one of them is like, there's primal play in one of them. I'm trying to remember what some of the other ones now. I'm totally blanking.
The Valentine's Day one is like exhibitionism.
Yeah, she likes the idea of being caught.
It's also a hockey romance, technically.
Oh yeah, technically it is. He is a hockey player, yeah.
I like that you can just read any of them at any point. It doesn't matter when they were released. Like there's no order to them. They're not. It's a series of interconnected holiday stories, but they're not sequential.
Yeah, and the holiday aspect is super like limited. Most of them have almost nothing to do with the holiday. Like the 4-leaf one, I think they mentioned St. Patrick's Day once. They're like, oh, there's a parade going on. I'm like, that's it.
and they're decorating the pub for St. Patrick's Day. And
that's about it.
Yeah, you can definitely read them whenever you want. Mine is Jingle Mingle by Alexandria House, which is a Christmas short. Do I remember what happens in this one? No, I don't. there's like 3 of them. This could be any of those 3. I don't know which one.
It's basically Alexandria House and a Christmas novella, and that's what Heather remembers.
I think this one might be like, that's probably a lie. It could be like friends reunited. I don't know.
I mean, the synopsis doesn't really help.
Yeah, not super helpful over there. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Networking. Okay. Something happened. I think it's a one night stand. It's what I think it is now. Maybe.
Cool. That's all we need.
Something happened. That's your synopsis.
18 pages long. What do you want from me?
I was just gonna say, to be
Something
fair, it's
always
only 18
happens.
pages.
Well, I'd be disappointed if something didn't happen. Let's be real. So my K book is Kiss and Don't Tell by Megan Quinn. It is the first book in the Vancouver Agitators series. And this one is about Winnie, who is, well, there's a group of hockey players who are staying in a cabin over the break. And Winnie is driving somewhere and she runs her car off the road in the snow, ends up finding this place. She doesn't, like, she's pretty much wandering aimlessly and finds this house and asks to use a phone. They end up letting her stay there, and she ends up falling, I think, for the goalie, Pacey. But they let her stay out, sort of the storm there. And there's a whole lot of other things going on, but it was a kind of a funny little meet cute. So,
And like the dynamic between all the hockey players is
oh
fun.
yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. So mine is King of Wrath by Anna Huang. And Monica is here, and she is the one who actually gifted me this book. The audiobook is so freaking good. I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. I absolutely adored it because I don't typically like billionaire romances, but this is a billionaire romance. The heroine also comes from a pretty well-off family, and it is an arranged marriage by blackmail, but the heroine doesn't know and the hero does. So the hero is pissed off, and so you have a very reluctant hero. So it's like enemies to lovers-ish. But he's very, very reluctant because he's doing this against his will, but she doesn't know anything about it because it's her dad who arranged this whole thing. And it's forced proximity. It's just so, like, I could not put this book down. I could not stop reading it. I read it in one day, even though it's like longer than books that I normally read in one day. And like I said, the audio was so good. Highly recommend.
Mine is Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane, which is technically a holiday romance. But we have an ace heroine who ends up having this magical one night over Christmas with this woman that she randomly meets. And the two of them end up going their separate ways for reasons. And then our heroine ends up becoming fake engaged, fake dating this guy that she meets at her job, because he needs somebody to take home for the holidays. And when she gets there, the one night stand that she ran out on is his sister. And the two of them end up having to spend the holidays together, and they kind of figure out why they ended up not working the first time through. This gets a lot of Allo reviewers that say that the ace rep is terrible and it needs more people to read it. So that's not a thing anymore, because the heroine has a one night stand, so apparently she can't be ace. So, which always gets me going.
I loved that book so much. It was so good. Yeah.
Mine is Keeping Lily by Izzy Sweet. This is like my favorite ridiculous over the top Insta-lust mafia obsession alpha. I just met you, but I'm gonna marry you and put a baby in you, and then you'll never be able to leave me series. And each book is like that over and over again. I will say there's some very graphic torture scenes anytime they go in the warehouse with like an enemy. You might not want to watch. You might want to just skip on by the warehouse. But this one, you have this like guy, and he owes the head of the mafia money, and he's like not paying or whatever. So he's like, well, we're gonna have to make him pay and stuff. And then he sees a picture of this man's wife, and he's like, we're gonna go to their house actually right now. So he goes, and this man is like the worst, and he's cheating on his wife, and she's like laying in bed, and like he just got back from a trip, and he like hasn't even acknowledged her, and she's like, I'm filing for divorce, like I'm done doing this. And she has 2 kids, and then the mafia bursts in to their bedroom in the middle of the night, and he's like, take my wife and kids. And then she's like, well, I'm gonna kill you. And he's like, all right, done, they're my family now. And then he makes them his family. And that's it. And then she's like the queen of the mafia, and she's like, help, and they're like, no. And yeah, they're all like that. So you're coerced until you fall in love, and it's fine. Also, this is my series that is my favorite, but it's not good. It's not good at all. So understand that going in. Lower your expectations.
Everyone needs series like that, Heather. All right. So my one for Elle is the True Love Experiment. I don't like this cover. This is one of the covers where I prefer the UK cover. Anyway, this one's a follow-up from, oh gosh, The Soulmate Equation. And it is, I just love the premise for it, the fact that it's a reality dating show, but it is being produced by a marine documentary producer. And he's very unhappy that he has to make a reality dating show. And he ends up asking Fizzy, who is a romance author, to be the heroine on the show. She's recently had a few revelations about her life, and she's sort of trying to work those out. But the actual concept for the reality dating show was really interesting because they pulled matches from the dating app that was in the first book based on tropes. So she literally gave the hero a list of tropes for guys to find for the show. So there's the vampire and there's the billionaire and whatnot. And, you know, it's funny because you get the behind the scenes stuff, and obviously the producer and the author fall in love. But like just the whole premise of it, I just found really entertaining because it was kind of a love letter to romance readers.
Oh.
Like, was it fantastic? Probably not, but it was a romance letter to romance readers. So I like it for that reason.
I've been curious about this one. I didn't realize it was connected to the Soulmate Equation.
It's kind of loosely connected. So Fizzy is the best friend from the first book.
Okay.
And the app the app that was created, I think, has been sold in the second book. So a new company's taking it over because the hero from the first book does appear in it. He's very unhappy because he's being interviewed about the app. He's like, "Why are you talking to me?" Like, yeah, that's about right.
I'm gonna have to read that one. So mine, excuse me, is Love Notes by Christina C. Jones. This one, the heroine, I'm obsessed with the heroine. I'm in love with her. Her confidence is everything. Like the meet cute is great. They meet in this club, and the hero is a barber. So he's like looking at her because she has this really cool haircut, and he's kind of just like looking at it because he's a barber. And she's just like, she just goes up to him and she's like, "I see you looking at me. Like, I see you checking me out." And he's like, "I mean, I was looking at your hair." And she's like, "You might have been looking at my hair and appreciating my hair, but you were looking at me." I loved her confidence so freaking much. This is a one night stand turned something more. And actually I took the content warnings from Heather's review of this book. So there is sexual harassment from the stepfather, estranged parent, foster care, and a Plan B argument. And that is Heather's content warnings for it.
Mine is Leviathan Song by Elsie Winters, which is a fantasy romance series that is following this world called Boundlands that exists kind of in the same world as our reality. You can cross over into it, and there are gates around, and our heroine is she's an elf, right? Like, if I'm remembering correct. And she is having a romance with a siren who she meets on the side of the street, and they get off on the wrong foot, but he is like immediately attracted to her and like interested in her. And the two of them end up having to work together because these guys are out, like these evil men are out to get our heroine because she can imbue things with magic and she can make golems. And they want her to essentially make an army of these things. And her and the siren end up having to travel together, and along the way they fall in love, and it's semi-insta-lovey and really, really cute and hilarious. And I think that Elsie Winters does some cool different takes on some classic fantasy things. Like the way that she handles her sirens and vampires and things like that are a little bit different than you see in other series. And I I think it's really cool. It's really fun. There's no third act breakup. These two love each other so much, and it's absolutely adorable. And the roommates and friendships in here are fantastic. And the third book comes out soon, so.
Yeah, very soon. Mine is Last Light by Claire Kent. This is a dystopian age gap romance. Their town, you know, they've been making it for the last few years, but basically their town has had to close up. And both of them, instead of traveling with their town, they had family members that weren't going to make it and they chose to stay with. Both of those family members have passed. It's his daughter and her like grandmother, mother figure, so content warning for that. But so they like accidentally meet up on the road, and he used to be her mechanic before the world ended, basically. And he's like, you know, I'm not going to hurt you, but like, I don't think you should travel alone. And she's like, nah, I'm good. And then he like kind of rescues her a little bit. And she's like, you know, maybe traveling with you wouldn't be so bad. Like, we could make it work. And he obviously, end of the world, a lot of times sex for protection is considered a fair trade. And he's like, no, that's not what, like, I'm just going to protect you. And she's like an 18-year-old or like a 19-year-old. Like, she's young. She was underage when the world ended and has now, you know, spent the last 3 or 5 years, whatever it is. So I love this because it's an age gap romance, and they like talk over and over again about how if the world hadn't ended, like, he just would have been her mechanic and like an older guy in the town. He's like 30 or something. He's not crazy. Like, just if things were normal, they never would have even considered each other as a possibility. But because of being thrown together and the world ending and all this, they have the cutest, sweetest. And he's just like, and it's like the very end of the book, and she's like, I didn't know that you felt that way about me. And he's like, how could you not know that I worship the ground you walk on? And it's so cute and sweet. And yeah, I love it.
This is a standalone?
It is a standalone, but it does connect to her, I think it's Kindle series, which is shorter books. Basically, at the end of this, they kind of set up a network to help other people, and they like get interconnected through the other books too. But you can definitely read it as a standalone.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I'm going to have to duck downstairs in a minute, but for M, I had Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall, which I'm going to preface and say is not going to be a book for everyone because it is written in a very different style than he normally writes. And I know that Robin did not finish it. And that's okay, because I totally get why. Mm-hmm. So this is a sapphic historical romance about a woman who's been cursed and who ends up seeking out the help of a woman who may or may not have murdered her father and brothers for money and is thought to be a witch by the ton. And it is told from the perspective of, I've forgotten what kind of creature they were, but the character's name is Robin, and they're telling the story as the third person, as the third observer, narrating to the audience. So it's a very specific type. And I will say it's probably not my favorite Alexis Hall book, but there were parts of it that I really enjoyed. And I liked that it was a sapphic romance, and I liked that it still had the same humor that he normally has in his books. So I appreciated it for that.
And I thought the narrator was hilarious in it. So that's what
I like the narrator because I like that sort of humor and the way that it was told, but I get why it wouldn't work for everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
I will be back in a minute. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, do you want to say your book and I'll pop it up and then I'll run downstairs?
Oh, yeah. It is The Marriage Contract by Shay Davis. So this one, it's mostly the audiobook that I really liked because it is a full cast narration, and it includes two of my all-time favorite narrators, which is Wesley Chabon and Emmanuel Ingram. And I'm pretty sure that Wesley Chabon must have her own like studio or something, because I think somewhere in the credits it said like her name, and it was like a studio name or something. So I think she kind of orchestrated the full cast narration, but it was so good. The narration was so good. I think I gave this book 4 stars. It wasn't my all-time favorite book, but I think just because of the narration, I just enjoyed it so much. But it's Marriage of Convenience. It's the hero is, oh God, he's a baseball player, and he wants to get a contract extension. And it's one of those things where he needs to be with someone to help his image or whatever. So they have this contract to get married. The heroine's plus size. He's a worshiping hero. They meet while she's on a birthday celebration in Vegas, and then they get married in Vegas. And yeah, it's really good. But like I said, audiobook.
Held in Contempt by Ava Cherie is Shay Davis's more erotic pen name.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that.
I never know when they have like multiple pen names until someone tells me.
I'm sure Tracy told me, and that's why I found out.
Tracy, you should read it. It's good. Listen to the audiobook.
I'll go right away while oh, she's back. Never mind. That was very fast.
It was very fast.
Good work.
Mine is Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner, which is an age gap sapphic romance. I will warn you that there is some lying in this one that wasn't my favorite, but the romance itself is really steamy and really good. Essentially, these two women meet at a bar and they hit it off right away, and they end up ducking out of the bar and having sex in the older woman's car. And then they go their separate ways, and our younger heroine ends up joining her best friend to meet with her best friend's mom for brunch the next morning.
Oh, no.
And the woman that she slept with the night before is her best friend's mother.
Oh, no.
And the two of them pretend like they don't know each other because the best friend has a strained relationship with that mom. And so they pretend that they don't know each other at brunch, and they still go and see each other. And they're trying to figure out how to make it work.
Sounds very messy.
It is very, very messy. And some of the way, it's one of those books where you're not like mad at, sometimes you're mad at them because they handle it in a very realistic way where it's like you all mess up quite a bit and everyone it does some not so great things. And so it's very messy and very, very realistic. Mm-hmm. But I think Meryl Wilsner does a lot of really good steamy sapphic romances, which I know historically hasn't been easy to find. So I like this one a lot. Age gap, best friend's mom.
I just read it last week. It is good.
It's very good. It's messy, but it's good.
Mistakes Were Made is such a great title for that.
Yeah, it is. Mine is Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which is not a romance, it's a fantasy, but it's also my favorite book of the year, and I really just need everyone who even kind of likes fantasy to read it. This is one of those books where the characters are so clever that like I would read about them doing anything. So it's not like a fast moving plot or anything. You're really following one con artist as she tries to worm her way into the nobility without getting caught. And like there's a whole found family aspect, but you have a vigilante that has, been around for hundreds of years and has been helping the indigenous people, and then the nobles are, the colonizers, and they really look down on the indigenous ways. And our con artist is actually a mixed indigenous, so she uses like magic makeup and stuff. So when she's pretending to be the nobility, her makeup's a little lighter. When she's pretending to be a commoner, her makeup's a little darker. When she's pretending to be like herself, it's like in the middle. She has like a very interesting thing, and she there's a lot of astrology and a lot of like tarot type reading in this, and it's just like you don't know. And there's a criminal, and I love him, even though he's not even like the love interest, but I love him. There's just a lot, and I cried in all the books. But yeah.
Is there a romance at all in that?
Yes, there is a romance, but That's all I'll say.
Nice.
It's very good. I feel like if you are a character-driven reader, then this is the one for you, especially if you like smart, clever characters and characters who are competing with each other and you don't know who's going to win or who knows what, or if, you know, where their lines are, if they're actually going to help each other or betray each other. And there was something else with it. Oh, it's not fantasy beginner friendly though. It's more like you need to be able to follow a fantasy world pretty well.
Okay. Nice. So for N, I had Never Stay Gone by Talbauer, which is a small town second chance romantic suspense story. It is between a Texas Ranger and a deputy sheriff who end up working together to solve a crime. And it is very much a romantic suspense. It follows all of the beats of the romantic suspense in here. Yeah, I really enjoy his romantic suspense books. And I read a whole bunch of his standalone, well, it's just part of a series, but first books in his series. And it reads like a standalone.
I don't think he's continued the series either, has he?
No, I don't think he has. So I count it as a standalone, and it means that I could read one book and I didn't have to read others because there was no cliffhanger ending.
So mine is Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. This one just came out. I think it just came out on audio, or recently came out on audio. So that's why I picked it up. And it was my first by this author, and it definitely won't be my last. I really, really liked this one. So this is a roommate romance. The heroine gets custody of her baby sister because her mom is going through a lot of stuff. There's definitely trigger warnings for that, but she gets custody of her baby sister. The hero has custody of his brother because of similar situations. But there's like this program where they can like have housing and be together and like kind of help each other out, which is weird to me, but I was able to look past that. But it was really, really good. I liked this one a lot. The brother is deaf, and I believe the heroine knows sign language, so she's able to communicate with him, which is nice. But it's really good.
If I'm remembering correctly, I don't think the author is finishing this series.
Oh, she's not? No, I liked it.
I want to say she posted to her Instagram that there were reasons that she wasn't going to write the third book. She didn't say never, but not now, if I'm remembering correctly. Mine is The Neighbor Favor by Katrina Jackson. No, by Christina Forrest. Can't read my own notes. I know not everyone loved this one, but I absolutely loved this book. It starts off as kind of an epistolary romance because our heroine is completely obsessed with this fantasy book that she read as a kid. And the series ended, or the book ended on a cliffhanger, and they never continue on with the series. And she ends up being on the subway during like a really, really hot day in New York City. And she sees that the author of said book like created a website, and she is messaging him during her heat craze and ends up passing out and accidentally sends the email. And the two of them end up emailing back and forth and slowly get to know each other. And they agree that they are going to video chat, and then he ghosts her. And then you flash forward a little bit, and she gets a new neighbor in her apartment. And it turns out that it is the author, and he figures out who she is, and she has no idea who he is. And so the two of them have this mild miscommunication sort of deal. And then they kind of keep getting pushed together because her sister wants her to date him. And it's a really, really cute forced proximity romance. And I just loved the emails at the beginning. I thought they were really cute. I liked this one a lot.
The meet cute was really good.
The meet cute is so good. It definitely could have been shorter. I agree with that statement.
Mine is NYE by Jessica Gadziala. This is a New Year's Eve novella. She's a party planner. He's a billionaire, and he is taking issue with every single thing with the party just to be in the same room with her. And it's great. He annoys her to the bitter end and then they're together.
It's what we like. All right. So for Iced Out, I had Iced Out by C. Ritchie, which is another hockey romance. This one is an romance. It's two childhood rivals who were playing hockey with and against each other through, I think, their early and late teens, and they end up having to play on the same college hockey team, and they really do not like one another. So it is sort of this rivals to lovers. They really need to sort out their issues. And it was an interesting one. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it because, again, this was another really popular one, and I tend to be very hit or miss on the super popular hockey books, but I enjoyed it.
Was it artwork or something for the sequel just released?
Was there? I'm the last person to find out anything on social media because I'm on there, but I don't pay attention.
Yeah, it's going to be called Caught Stealing.
Okay.
And they had some artwork that was just released with a couple of like little tropes and stuff.
See,
it's like, I swear I just saw it.
Yeah, I go to Robin for anything that is coming up because I don't pay attention. Thanks, Robin.
So mine is, wait, are we on? Okay, yeah, we are on O. I was like, that one starts with I. Okay.
I tried really hard.
Yes. Mine is On the Hustle by Adriana Herrera. This is the second book in a series, but I know for a fact you don't have to read them in order because I did not. I read this book. I loved the heroine in this one. She's like a badass, hardworking heroine. This is like a boss assistant situation. But I think the thing that I loved the most about it was her perception of her relationship with her boss is that they have a very like, tense relationship and they don't get along. But the reality is that he has been pining for her, but he purposely has like kind of put up a wall and has been cold to her because of his attraction. And he knows that there's a power dynamic. So he's purposely like, I can't pursue anything because I'm her boss and I don't want her to feel like she has to, like do anything with me. But she ends up quitting because she gets this opportunity in another state. And then he's like, when she quits, she's like, yay, I'm finally rid of him. And he's like, yay, I can finally ask her out. But he ends up, there's a reality TV show element in it. And she's also like, her passion, she's his assistant, but her actual passion is interior design. And she designs these like bedrooms based on books. And it's really fun. But yeah, it's super, super good. This one caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. And it's an all-time favorite now.
Mine is Office Hours by Katrina Jackson. Hence why I got them out of order. And this one is a university romance. I do want to, this has no plot to it. Like I can't, is that enough? There's no plot to this book. But we're following this heroine who is working at this university and she is insanely overworked. And one of the big themes about this book is talking about particularly women of color at a college campus and how they are expected to do absolutely everything and do great and be better than everyone. And she has this massive crush on our hero. And the two of them end up having to work together and head this committee. And they end up having an office place romance. And it's one of those books it's really all about the characters. There's no real plot in here. Mm-hmm. But Katrina Jackson is in academia. And I think she had some really exceptional things to say about being particularly a woman of color in academia. Plus, I've heard the sequel is great. I just haven't listened to it yet because there's no audiobook yet.
Mm-hmm. Mine is One Night, One Bite by Drea Anderson. This is a vampire novella. It's Black love, and it's a very interesting setup. It will be a series, but we aren't getting the rest of the books until next year. So she's like, she has like fire powers, and he's the king of the vampires' guard. He's like the captain of his guard or something. And they run into each other in a club, and he's like, mate. And she is actually like celebrating her divorce from her arranged marriage, and her family is not going to be happy that she is going to mate a vampire, and it's great. It's so good. It's short and steamy and obsessive. So I really liked the whole setup for her paranormal world. It sounds very, very interesting.
Actually, I need to save that because there will be a video coming later in the year. Okay, for P, I am going to just be really basic and go with Pucking Around, mostly because this is what I did to my copy of the book, so I really liked it. So this is another one of those really long books that you go, how long is that? And how is it as good as it is when it's this long? It is a White Shoes hockey romance. There is a prequel novella to it called That One Night. You don't have to read it, but it does make more sense if you do. It is about Rachel, who is a sports physical therapist who ends up getting a job with a new hockey team, the Jacksonville Rays. And when she gets there, she finds that a guy that she had a one-night stand with a couple of months ago is one of the players. And it is her relationship with him, with Jake's best friend, and also with the goalie on the team, Ilmari. And Emily Rath knows how to write a queer romance really well. All of the representation in it is really good. The polyamorous relationship, it's fairly complex for what it is because there are multiple couples within the relationship, and their dynamic changes through the book as well. But it's also very, very funny and very easy to read. It's one of those books that you think, wow, it's 750 pages long. There is absolutely no way that I'm going to get through this book. And then you read it in about 24 hours. Okay. She's got a very compulsive writing style.
Did they announce the date of that the audiobook is being released?
No, they're in the works. So I'm in her Facebook group, and they had some issue because she was very adamant about having audiobook narrators for every character, and they've had to drop it down to 3 instead of 4 with the company that she's working with. And I think they may have started locking in the narrators for it, so it's definitely in the works. And I know she keeps getting asked a lot about the audiobook, so it's definitely happening. And it was so funny because she was like, we need to, and she's been trying to find authentic voice narrators because Ilmari is Finnish, and she wanted to try and find a Finnish audiobook narrator, and they just couldn't do it. So it's coming, and I will let you know as soon as I know anything, Bree, because I know you want the audiobook.
I'm dying to read this book, but I don't think I can physically read 750
No.
pages. My eye would give out for sure. So mine is The Protege by Brianna Hale. This also has like everything that I hate in not hate in books, but things that I don't like in books. But for some reason, it worked for me. It's a very, very, very taboo romance. It is age gap, and it is also he is her guardian. So from the time she is very young, so it's not going to be for everybody. There's BDSM in it. There's a lot of triggers in it. He is a conductor, and she is a musician. And it's a dom sub relationship. There's the daddy kink in it, which I also don't like. But I don't know, this just worked for Brianna Hale writes books that I normally wouldn't like, but somehow I like them. So
Mine is Plie by A.H. Cunningham, which is one of my favorite covers of the year.
I like that cover.
But it is a woman who teaches ballet, and she is having a romance with one of her students' fathers, which sounds semi-forbidden, but she actually meets him through a sex club. She used to be a sub semi-professionally, and now she is helping this guy because he is trying to get into the BDSM scene, and he wants to practice being a dom before he goes out into the world. And so the two of them are having these one-on-one sessions together. Turns out that she is one of his students' father, and the two of them have an age gap semi-forbidden romance. I loved it. This book is really steamy. It's really fun. I loved the ballet elements. The friends in here are great. And book 2 is already out.
Sorry, I missed the book, Robin. Got distracted.
No, that's fine. It's Plie, Plie.
Yeah.
There it is. There's that cover.
Sorry.
Such a good
That
cover.
was bad post of me.
It happens to the best of us. All right, where is my list? I have too many tabs open on my phone. Okay, mine is Pregnant by the Playboy by Jackie Lau. This is a one-night stand, and she is in her 30s. They both are, and they are both, I believe, Chinese Canadian, but they're definitely both Asian Canadian, but I'm pretty sure they're both Chinese Canadian. And he was like a workaholic, built his company up, got completely burned out, sold it for millions of dollars, and has been a playboy ever since, just, partying and living the life. And he has kind of an obsessive personality. And when we meet him at this one night stand, he's kind of over it. He's kind of like, all right, this has been enough. And his brother, who has his own book, but I haven't read it, has a baby girl, and he's like obsessed with this baby niece of his. So he's just like, I don't know. I think I'm kind of done with this stage of life. So they have one night stand. She gets pregnant. She had an abortion back in college, but at this point, she is ready to have a kid, wants to have a kid, can financially provide for a child with or without a co-parent, but she really likes him. She likes his personality. He's very sweet. So she tells him, and he's like, marry me. And she's like, no, we don't even know each other. But he will go and get her whatever food she's craving and just like takes care of her and does all these things through like the first trimester of pregnancy without them being dating at all. They're just going to be co-parents. And of course, he's still working on his master plan that he's going to marry her and they're going to be a happy family. That's going to be his next life project and stuff. And she's like, that doesn't seem healthy. I don't think that we should do that. But yeah, he's just incredibly sweet to her and kind of messes up a couple times trying to force his agenda. But she ends up falling for him, and they're really cute. And I just feel like if you want to see like a pregnancy where she's being spoiled and doted on, that's a really, really good one for that.
I just read a Jackie Lau book, and I'm just reminded how much I like her writing and her characters.
She's one of those authors where I feel like you know exactly what you're getting in her books. If you like it, you're gonna like all of them relatively the same, and she's just very consistent.
I like her characters for sure.
All right. So I don't know. The only person who might have this one is Robin. So I don't know if you picked the quarterback as well.
I didn't. I figured it's either already been done or someone else would have it.
Okay. So The Quarterback by Tal Bauer is the second book of 2. It probably makes more sense to read the first book, but I needed a book for Q, so here we are. It is an sports romance. It is football, and it is the story of an injured quarterback who falls for the father of one of his best friends. It is an age gap romance. There is a lot of caretaking in it. It is very messy. It also becomes a bit of a workplace romance because the quarterback ends up interning at his partner's firm and bring tissues because it is very messy.
I need to read Tal Bauer so badly.
Start with Gravity and the rest of the story, please.
Which one?
Gravity and the rest of the story.
Okay, I'm writing it down. All right. So my Q is Queen Move by Kennedy Ryan. This goes along with her Kingmaker series. It's about the best friend in that one and super, super badass heroine who's involved in politics. It's a mature romance. They're in their late 30s. It's childhood friends to lovers. This is one of those rare contemporary books where their romance feels like fated mates because it's just you feel like they're meant to be together. I feel like Kennedy Ryan does that so well in contemporary single dad romance. And yeah, like I said, it feels like fated mates in a contemporary world. It's so good.
I had a hard time with Q, so mine's a Christmas book, so sorry. But it's Let Your Heart Be Light by Faye Quinn. It is an mature romance. So our characters are both in their 40s, and they both have teenage kids, and they are complete opposites. Like, one is this big burly guy who's into sports and all of this stuff, and the other guy is, I think he's a baker or something like that. And the two of them end up getting matched because their kids end up signing them up for this like parents' friend during the holiday sort of thing, because they're both worried about their parents being alone on the holiday. But also the two kids have a crush on each other, so they want to hang out, and so they sign each other up, and they end up guaranteeing essentially that their dads are going to get matched. And the dads end up having a total opposites attract romance. And I really liked the families in here because neither one of these has a like traditional family organization. And so I just really liked how all of that was done. And it's very sweet. I called this pure Christmas serotonin. So
Nice.
Mine is Queen and Conqueror by Isabel Olmo. This is a Puerto Rican author. It's a fantasy romance. I will say there's a lot of queer characters in this world, but there's also a lot of homophobia, and even like there's this older character, this older lesbian, and it like talks about basically how her lover was like tortured, and she was like raped by her husband to get the gay away and like that type of thing. So it's not a lot on page, but obviously it's like very upsetting and pretty extreme, I guess. But so just caution on that. And overall, I would say it's dark. There's a lot of people dying and things like that. But you have this queen, and she is like her father's pride and joy, and he got her this marriage, and she he always taught her strategy and everything, and she was a good little wife, and her husband patted her on the head and was like, it's okay, just leave war to the men, and went and got himself killed. And she's like, well, when my mourning is over, I'm going to save my country without a war, because I'm going to marry the man who killed my husband, and we're gonna rule together. And she does that, and she's super smart. And the king that she marries hates politics, and is just like, all right, great, you can do everything. You can do this for me. This is great. And there's like a lot of different layers to it, but she also has a all-female guard, and we're gonna follow some characters from that in the rest of the series. But she's a very, very calculating, conniving character who is going to outplay you at whatever game you're playing, and it's really good. I was like shockingly good, honestly. I picked up with kind of like, oh, really, like, this queen sounds intriguing, and I'm probably gonna DNF, and I did not.
All right. So we're at R. And I have, ironically, the book that I probably should have put on here, I did not, because I thought I'd already recommended it, and I have not, but we're just going to go with what I had written down. So is Rookie Mistake by Anna Szabo and L.A. Witt. It is another hockey romance. This one is the closest I've found to the rest of the story by Tal Bauer. And it is the relationship between a rookie and veteran player on the same team. One who is kind of grumpy, but it is very much also a book about survivorship. So the older hero in the book has been through some abuse by another member on his, or former member on his same team, and he's really worried about repeating the cycle this time around. So he's very reluctant to get into his relationship, but there is no third act breakup, and it does really deal with the difficulties, I think, in sports, and the way that abuse and violence can be systemic. But also on the flip side, there is actually a lot of hockey on page, which is my criteria for a really good hockey romance, that they're actually playing the sport and it's not just they're a player. It's very well written, and considering the length of it as well, it's a very, very well written book, and a lot of diverse cast of side characters too. Also brings issues.
So mine is Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall. This is one of my favorite Alexis Hall books, actually. And because it has one of my all-time favorite tropes that I can't tell because it's a spoiler if I tell you what the trope is. But it's so freaking good. It caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to like this one as much as I liked it, but I loved it. And of course, it's the first book in the Winter Bakes All series. The heroine is Bi. She's like a home baker, and she's also a single mom. You have a cinnamon roll hero. She's a contestant on a reality TV show. But this whole series is really good. And of course, it has all the Alexis Hall things. Like, the heroine's a little bit of a hot mess, and it's funny, and has his wit and everything. I love this book.
Mine is Restore Me by J.L. Sigers, which is long. And I do not recommend the audiobook. Start off with that. Don't listen to the audiobook. I didn't like the audiobook. But this is following a heroine who has this amazing romance with her husband, and she ends up losing her husband right at the beginning, like before the start of the book. And she has this very strained relationship with his best friend for reasons that you do get to learn about throughout the book. And the two of them end up having a secret romance. They end up having this really intense encounter at a club. There is a content warning for an attempted on-page sexual assault. And he ends up saving her from that situation. And the two of them realize that they have a very intense attraction towards each other. And they decide to explore it. But she does not feel comfortable telling anyone because she is still very close with her late husband's family. And so it is the drama that comes from all of that. And the hero has worshipped the absolute ground that she has walked on for years. And I love that so much. I love when the heroes are just...
Oh my gosh. I love worshiping heroes who are also like super alpha. I think that's the time that I can handle an alpha. He's like the perfect alpha for me.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so scared of this book. I've seen so many people read it, and isn't this the one where they're like desperately waiting for book 3 or book 4 or something, and it like just came out? No,
I mean, the second
book.
Yeah, the second book is 3 parts, and it just finished.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. No, this book is separate because this is about a separate couple than the second book.
And this is just 1 book long.
Yep.
But
it's long,
right?
It's so freaking good. It is so. It was my favorite book of last year. Like, I loved it.
Just don't listen to the audiobook. I did not like the female narrator. So.
I really did not like the female narrator, but the book was so good that I didn't even notice. I mean, I noticed, but I could push through because the book was so good.
Yeah. Mine is Redemption by Kenya Wright. This is a dark romance, a dark Christmas mafia book. So he was like an enforcer for mafia back in Chicago, and then things went wrong and his family got killed. And she is escaping a domestic abuse situation right at the beginning of the book. So like you're opening into a domestic abuse scene. So be careful of that. And she and her children escape. And the abuser follows them and they crash in like the snow at the front of this guy's house. And he's, has this lonely, solitary country estate. And he's like, why are there people on my property? And he is very protective. And the abuser comes and they kill him really graphically.
Very graphically. It was so graphic. I was not expecting.
It was a lot. Also, there's not safe for work artwork in a lot of her books, but definitely in this one. So be careful. Even in like the ebook, it's in there. So be careful where you're reading it. But I mean, I don't know. I really liked it. I was like, all right, like this man deserves to die. I'm on board. So
it's very satisfying in that way.
Right. Yeah. They're both like, we can't love each other. And they fall in love in like a day. So
it's really good.
All right.
So I have Sunny Disposition. This is the, I'm actually going to talk about book 1 and book 2 sequentially in S&T because they both follow on from one another. It's by Deanna Gray. It is a college hockey romance, and it is about Naomi, who needs a place to stay while on campus, and she ends up rooming with some guys from the hockey team. But what they don't realize, so she's a live stream gamer, and the guy that she falls for is one of her moderators, but they've only ever talked via text, so they don't know who the other person is. And the night that they were going to meet up, he suffers a concussion while playing, and so there is a bit of an amnesia trope through here, so be aware of that. But it works really well in the context of what happened, and it makes sense because he got hit in the head, which I prefer over some of the other ways that amnesia trope is used. But anyway, they eventually figure out who the other person is. And this 2-book series does have a little bit of a mystery thread. The hockey players are trying to figure something out that's going on that's more prevalent, and I'll talk about it in the next book. But it was grumpy sunshine and slow burn and utterly delightful. It was a really fun read.
Oh, that sounds good. And I hadn't heard of this one before.
And I love the cover for these 2 books. They're awesome.
I'm absolutely reading that. I'm going to apologize to Robin in case this was going to be her pick for S, but I chose Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. Okay. Because I read this because of Robin, because I had posted on Instagram, I wanted a very romantic book, and I asked everyone what their most romantic books were. And Robin said this book, and oh my gosh, it was so good. So this is a male romance. It's Grumpy Sunshine, and they met on a hike on the PCT, I think they call it. It's the Pacific Crest. Yeah. It's 2,500 miles, which sounds nightmarish. I am not a nature person. However, I did not mind reading about it. It has a great, neat, cute. Ben is super charismatic, and then Lex is super quiet and nerdy, and he's neurodiverse. And of course, there's trigger warnings for homophobia, unfortunately. But yeah, it's really good, and it was very romantic too. It was exactly what I was looking for when I asked for those recs.
Do you know what I noticed? Because I read this last week. It reminded me of the grown-up queer version of Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett.
Oh, I love that.
Which is a young adult book.
Mine is actually Sweet Vengeance by Viano Oniyoma, because I'm obsessed with this book. It is a good for her romance. We are following this heroine who, prior to the book, suffered a sexual assault by a coworker. And the opening chapter is her summoning this demon. And when she summons the demon, he says, "Okay, do you want me to kill him?" And she says, "No, I want to kill him. I want you to let me, help me get away with it." And so he's like, "All right, let's do it." And so they concoct this plan to allow her to get her revenge against her attacker. And she is now, because of this, suffering from some holdups for a physical relationship. She doesn't want to be touched. And he lets her take the lead and use him however she sees fit, and doesn't touch unless she asks for it. And he falls first. And I loved how brutal this one got. I loved how much the demon just worships her. And the heroine walks that perfect line between being a really strong heroine, but also being very vulnerable, and shows how much this has impacted her. And I love this book so much. I love it.
Why is that everything I love in a romance?
It's so good.
I need to read
She tortures the guy that attacked her, and it is amazing.
Mine is Split Decision by Christina C. Jones. This is my favorite Christina C. Jones that I've read in a minute. It is a novella, and basically he was her brother's best friend, and her brother has died because of a shooting. And there's a little bit of an age gap, but she's 26 and he's 34, something like that. And she was in a abusive relationship, and he actually beat the guy to death or something like that, and has been in prison for a while for it. And then she like gives him a place to stay. Like she has the gym from her brother and like all this stuff. And he like will not go there because his brother or her brother didn't want him to. And I loved the discussions in this book about how like one, she's a full-on adult now. Secondly, he was never like into her as a teenager and was like constantly defending her against other people, where it was like, oh, like you're legal now, or like 6 months till you're legal, and him just being like, absolutely not. But like it's like 10 years later, she's a full adult, and I just loved the discussions about like how he was the type of man that her brother would have wanted her to be with. And like you can't just not like it was great. It was like these older main characters or these older side characters that were just like, son, like you are causing problems where there doesn't need to be any problems based on information that's 10 years old. And it was so sweet and steamy. They were just perfect for each other. I loved them so much. It made me so happy.
Did you have to read the first book?
No, you don't. I think you see the side characters and that's it. They're pretty much unrelated.
Nice. All right. So I'm going to go back to that same series. So for T, I had Team Players by Deanna Gray, which is the second book in the series. I think there's only 2 at the moment. And this one is college hockey romance, and they're both captains of their respective men's and women's teams, and it deals quite heavily with the inequality between the men's and women's teams in terms of just even attendance. And yeah, it's really gorgeous. They don't hit it off straight away, but then they end up working together and they try and help each other out in terms of their captaincy. There is praise kink in it, and the mystery that started in the first book really comes to a fore in here because he's trying to figure out something to do with the head of the athletics department he might be involved with, and it turns out that the head of the athletics department is her stepfather. So it gets a little bit messy, but it is really great.
You're right about those covers. I love the covers.
Yeah.
So I had to choose Treble by Rosie Adams. This book is, sorry, Robin, is so steamy, and it's so good. It's such a great polyamorous relationship, open relationship. Both the hero and the couple that's together in the beginning, they both end up with and fall for like the same person, not realizing it. And it's so good. And there's great caretaking in this. It's not necessarily glossed over, but it was mentioned. The girl that they end up falling for, she has, I don't think it's said on page what she has, or maybe it is. She has like really bad periods. And so they both take care of her. And I just love that so much. But this was so good. So freaking steamy. Loved it.
I'll go with A Tale of Two Cities by Alexandra Warren, which is the name of the series. There are different holidays in this novella series, and this is another one that can be read in any order. It all takes place around the different holidays, and they are all these really short, steamy romances, novellas, and I loved these. All of these had tropes that I should not have liked. If you look up A Tale of Two Cities, a Halloween novella, it should pop up. There it is. Oh, go back. There.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
They all have tropes that I shouldn't like. Like, they're all super insta-lovey. One of them is like a famous person where the heroine like slides into his DMs and they have like this steamy night together. They're all over the top, and somehow I loved every single one of them. And they don't need to be read in order, but these ones do take a lot have a lot more about the holiday, I would say, in them than the Liese one.
They also definitely end on like happy for nows.
Yes.
Like
They're not like a lot of times they end like them at the airport with like a kiss or something like that, where it's like you don't get to see them in their relationship being happy. It's very much like this little slice of life, and then maybe something more happens later.
Maybe we'll make long distance work or move to each other or something. Mine is also by Alexander Warren. Mine is 2 Minute Warning. And this is a football romance with no third act breakup. And he is a quarterback, and her father is a well-known gambler on football. And so because of that, he's a little reluctant to get involved with her, just not even because he's like worried about her as a person at all, but obviously public perception, you know, he's just worried about whether this is a good idea or not. And she is a Instagram influencer, and they have really good communication, and they're kind of like friends to lovers kind of ish. Because she's like very into him and he's very into her, but he's definitely standoffish, and they just have fantastic communication. And at the end you're like, oh, they're gonna break up over this, and they just have a conversation, and it's like, oh wow, look at you.
Who knew?
To each other. So I love this one. And if you are a football fan, this is an author who knows sports, understands the sport. The sport is actually on page, so you know it's a part of the book, which I don't really care about that, but you know,
for those who do.
All right. You. So I've got Until I Get You by Claire Contreras, which is kind of hockey adjacent, really. The hero in the book used to play hockey, but the hero and the heroine meet at the very start. They're still in college, and she's kind of reluctant to start a relationship. She's experienced SA in the past, and the perpetrator of that is now stalking her. So she is basically going into hiding. And the hero of the book is a bit of a stalker himself, but not that one, which was my concern at the start, because I'm like, I don't know where this is going and I don't agree with it. So it is a little bit darker in that way. But he tracks her down 3 years later and believes that she's ruined his life and is determined to make her pay. But then he begins to find out her history, and the two begin to fall for one another. She's a soccer player as well, which was really fun. And I was surprised by how much I like it, because this is another very, very hyped book.
I like when the heroines are the athletes in it too.
Yeah.
So my U book is Untouchable by Talia Hibbert. This is part of my favorite series by Talia Hibbert, which is the Ravenswood series. This whole series, you can read all the books as standalones. I read them completely out of order. It was unintentional. I didn't realize they were part of a series when I first started it. And then I just ended up jumping around, and I was not lost at all, because they're kind of, I mean, they all take place in this small town, Ravenswood, but they're fairly loosely based. Like they're loosely connected. But this is a nanny romance, and you have a reformed bad boy. I think there's an age gap. He's a single dad. They were childhood acquaintances, and then they, to lovers. And it's forbidden, considered workplace romance because she's his nanny, but it's really good.
I like this series.
Mm-hmm. I love it. It's my favorite.
I stretched you to the word you. So it's You Saved Me by Rosalind Falk, which is a Black love romance, romantic suspense. It's Roslyn.
Roslyn.
Yeah, Roslyn. Why? Apparently it's not going to pop up.
The worst search. Goodreads is the worst with that.
But it is a romantic suspense. We are following this one guy who is, there it is. Apparently it just didn't want to come up. He wakes up, he has this feeling that he's going to have this absolutely terrible day, and he ends up losing his job at the beginning of the book because one of his coworkers sets him up to get fired. And then when he gets home, he finds his long-time boyfriend sleeping with somebody else in their bed. And so he just has the absolute worst day, and he goes and stays with his best friend, who is this very well-off woman. And she says, I will let you stay at my family's cabin, which is this giant mansion, if you will give me chapters for your book, because he wants to be an author. And she's like, that will be your payment. So he goes to this cabin to kind of grieve and start his life over. And at that same time, her brother is an FBI agent, and he just got done with his very, very intense case. And he is kind of forced to take some leave. And he also goes to the cabin. And the two of them have this very awkward first encounter because the brother doesn't know he's there, and one guy's in the shower, and it's very, it's very awkward. And they get off on the totally wrong foot. But unbeknownst to our hero, who is openly gay, the brother has been questioning his sexuality. And the two of them, since they're trapped at the cabin together, decide to explore that side of themselves together. And it's really good. This does have a romantic suspense aspect that I wasn't suspecting or expecting to come in, and it was really, really good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, nice.
Mine is Until the Sun Falls from the Sky by Kristen Ashley, and this actually just got added to Kindle Unlimited for a time, so the trilogy is on there now if you wanted to read it that way. But this is a paranormal series, and this one is vampires, and they have like this whole rule about how you can't have mates and yada yada, even though obviously they have mates. And so there's like, they're basically like companions, but they can't keep them. And he's been waiting for her, and he's like, she's gonna be my mate, and I don't care if I have to completely rewrite society as we know it. And yeah, it's a vampire Kristen Ashley romance.
Nice. All right, V. So I don't know which cover of this is going to come up. Oh, it's going to be this one. I have this one, which I really like because it shows that she's the hockey player. So this is Vital Blindside. It's the third book in a trilogy, although I think you can probably read this one on its own just because it takes place a long time after the end of the previous series, and you kind of only have the other characters mentioned as friends. It is a single dad, age gap, grumpy heroine, very, very sunshiny hero story. He owns an ice training facility, and she has recently been injured and is no longer able to play hockey professionally. And so he offers her a job as a coach for some of his female, or a coaching role, I should say, for some of his hockey female players. And it is really adorable. And I loved her because she's just got so much going on, and she has every reason to be grumpy about everything that's going on. And their romance was very, very sweet.
So let's see, what was mine? Oh, so mine is actually a series. It's the VIP series by Kristen Callahan. This is a rock star. Well, it follows rock stars, but not all of them are in the band. My favorite book is actually Managed, which is the second book, but they can be read out of order, I guess. It's been a while since I read the first book. But I love this entire series. The first book was probably my least favorite, but Manage was my all-time favorite. The hero has anxiety, and it's one of the best meet cutes of all time. I loved it so much. Like the whole, how she kind of helps him with his anxiety is fantastic. But yeah, I enjoyed every single book in this series. The first one, like I said, is my least favorite, but the rest of the series is just so good.
I only read Managed, and it worked really well as a standalone.
Yeah, I think especially that one. That one works really well as a standalone.
Mine is A Voyeur by Fiona Cole, which is one of my exceptions to no student-teacher romances, because this is actually a college student-teacher romance, and the heroine is only in his class for a semester. It's one of those like gen ed classes. But the heroine works at this sex club, and essentially she puts on shows for voyeurs. And our hero is a voyeur, and he is kind of like he's always attending that club. And so they end up meeting there. And then he realizes that she is in his class for the semester, and they have an age gap romance. I am normally not a student teacher person, but since college aged and they were only in the same class for a semester, I was able to look past it and get on board with this one. I think this was my most surprising book of last year because I just wasn't expecting this to be something that I loved, and I ended up, I think, giving it 5 stars.
Mine is Vampire Seduction by Celia Kyle. This is a novella. It's very lighthearted. They are mates, and he, I think, is on trial for murder, and she's a lawyer and like realizes that her mate is in the courthouse and is like, I'm his lawyer. I'm going to get him out of this. And they've never seen each other before, and it's just very lighthearted and silly and great.
Oh. All right. For W, I had Without You by Marley Valentine. Which, not coming up. Here it is. This is an MM romance. It's an MM contemporary romance, and bring tissues with this one because I bawled my eyes out while reading it.
I was literally reading Tragedy Brought Us Together, and I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, I cried so many times.
So many times. So the two heroes in this, one hero's brother has died after a really long-term battle with, was it cancer, Robin?
I think it was cancer, yeah.
It was cancer. And for most of his sort of adult life, he had a partner. And it's the relationship between the brother and the partner. And we learn a lot about the relationship between all of them because it hasn't always been really smooth sailing. But it's in their grief that they sort of come together and get to actually know one another and know the experiences of each other. And I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, but I will content warning, there is an extremely manipulative parent in the story, and it is very toxic. But the actual romance of it was really, really sweet and heartwarming.
And you get to see them again in What We Broke.
Nice. So mine is, I'm using this book as a way to recommend a series that I really love. So this is actually a third book in the series. It's called With Her Own Two Hands by Tasha L. Harrison. It's her small town romance. I think it's called, it's small town romance series. That's what it's called. This is the third book. It's my favorite book in the series, but I loved all of them. It's a sibling series, so it follows 3 sisters. It has a little bit of like maybe a speculative element in it, like a little bit of just a touch of magic in it. But the heroine in this one has bipolar disorder, and it's one of the best meet cutes because she does yoga. She has this yoga class that she goes to, and it's like her way of like calming down. It's her safe space. And then she's also an empath. She's like a huge empath, and the hero comes in and he's dealing with a lot of stuff. And she can like she's getting the vibes from him in her safe space. So she like walks over and puts a crystal on his head while he's like meditating. And it's the funniest thing ever. But I mean, the entire series is fantastic, but this one just happens to be my favorite. So good. Yeah, the yoga scene's the best.
Now I need to read that one.
Yeah. She's just like sick of it. She's like, I am so sick of your energy.
So good. Mine is We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian, which is my second favorite book of the year. This is a historical romance, but it's set in the 1950s in New York City. And we are following this guy who is he works for the newspaper. Totally blanking on the term here.
Reporter?
He's a reporter, thank you. And he is gay, but at this time in New York City, it was very dangerous to be openly queer. And so he kind of lives his whole life very concerned about everything. He is a very uptight person because he's so scared about people figuring out who he is. And the son of the guy that owns the newspaper is supposed to be taking over the newspaper, but he is the world's biggest hot mess. And so he ends up getting partnered with this guy to try and learn the ins and outs of the newspaper. But he is one of those people that like disaster follows him, like his tie gets stuck in drawers and he forgets his keys. And our other hero, the openly gay hero, is always trying to help him stay together. And so he ends up like putting his keys on like a necklace for him. And he ends up getting this big crush on the other guy. And the two of them, again, have the friends being friends thing where they cuddle all the time and they always want to hang out. But the one guy ends up getting engaged to this woman who they're all best friends with. And our hero thinks that he is just going to be the best friend. And he's okay with that. And as time goes, they get closer and closer and closer, and their friendship turns into more. And it is absolutely adorable. I love it so much. This has another really good exploration of very different family dynamics. One of our heroes comes from a very large Italian family, and he doesn't feel like he can come out. And the other guy has never been close with his father, but his father desperately wants to build a relationship, even though they're both adults now. It's very good. I cried in this one too, so. It's not sad. This is another happy cry one.
I love that for you.
Yes. Mine is Wild Pitch by Kat Geraldo, which Robin's supposed to be reading at some point. This is a baseball romance, and she is the first female player in the Major League Baseball league, and they are both bi. He is a older catcher. He's at the end of his career basically, but he really wants that World Series ring, and she is a rookie pitcher. And he's submissive and she's dominant, and they have they have a great relationship when they're not being together. Like, no, I can't do it. But it's really good. And this is tropes, like every single trope in this I don't care about at all. And I still really loved it. So I feel like if that pitch sounds like your thing, you will absolutely love it, because the characters and the writing were excellent. And they are Filipino and Latina. So
Everything that I love.
yes.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this one.
I feel like you guys would love it. Like love it more than I did. And I really liked it.
All right. So, oh gosh. So for X, I had Excalibur by Anna Hackett, which is book 5 in the Sentinel Security series, which you can probably read as a standalone, but you'll know all of the characters if you read them. But they are essentially my romantic suspense popcorn reads, because they are, just very fast-paced, no third act breakup, but mostly bodyguard relationships in this one. So this one is a bodyguard romantic suspense. There's a surprise baby after the couple have sort of this week together. But then there is something that happens that means that they don't see each other for a period of time. It is very much a grumpy sunshine and just adorable with explosions, which is basically my vibe. Adorable with explosions.
Adorable with explosions. A little kidnapping on the side.
Well, I think of Anna Hackett. Anna Hackett is kind of like the Australian version of Jessica Gadziala. They're just very short, very easily readable books.
Yes, definitely.
So my choice is The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes by Zio Axelrod. Zio is spelled with an X, which is why I chose this. This was a very difficult one to find. I actually met Zio Axelrod at Shameless BookCon recently, and I loved talking to her. And she actually, the heroine in this one is it's a rock star romance, but it's the heroine who's the rock star. And Zio was in the music industry for a while, and you can really tell in this book. This is childhood friends to lovers. It is like contemporary fiction as well. So to me, as a romance reader, it felt a little long, but I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but it's really good, and I love that cover.
It is a very nice cover. Oh. You need to turn your mic on, Robin.
It's because I keep clicking off and then back over, and I think that I do it and I don't. We're on X, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yes.
Okay. Mine's The Husband Hoax by Saxon James, which is the lowest angst book that you can probably read. Saxon James, her solo books have no drama, no angst. They are good times only. And this is a fake dating, accidental fake dating, hence accidental love. Our heroes end up meeting at this church. One is there for a wedding and one is there for a funeral. And the guy that is there for the funeral wants nothing to do with his family because his family is very rich and they suck. And he goes outside to get away from them, and he finds this guy outside absolutely panicking and freaking out because the guy that he hired to be his fake date stood him up. And the guy that is at the funeral is like, well, I'll be your date. Why not? And so he goes to the wedding with this guy, and the two of them end up having this really, really adorable romance. And one of the guys is trying to get an inheritance, and the other one is trying to show his family that he's not a total failure. And they live in this house with all of these queer people who are kind of being taken care of by their landlady. They're all artists. And it's really cute. It's really funny. There's a cat on the cover.
And Christian is the biggest hot mess. And
oh my God.
What happens at the wedding, I was in stitches.
He ruins the wedding cake. Like,
oh no.
It's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Mine is Axel in Heaven by Francesca Penn. This is a vacation, fake dating, interracial romance. He looks like Thor. He looks like Chris Hemsworth. And so she just had like a bad breakup, and her friend, without telling her, uses her ex's wedding trip to book them a discounted vacation at the same resort as the wedding, and she did not know. And she sees the ex and his like fiance walking on the beach, and she runs up to this man in the ocean and is just like, please save me, like that's my ex. And he like sweeps her off her feet and stuff, and they just have, you know, this great relationship for the week, and then they go their separate ways. He's a CEO, and all of a sudden he needs a fake girlfriend, and he's like, hey, remember what I did for you? You should do that for me. And they fall in love, and it's super sweet. I will say there is like a weird like attempted SA scene on the hero at the end, which does like get rescued and interrupted, but it might come out of left field if you are not prepared for it, because overall it's a pretty lighthearted book. So definitely rom-com, very, very sweet.
Nice. All right, you. So I have. Oh, sorry. Why? Oh my gosh. And because of the Chloe Liese book, I can't type any words. So I had If Only You by Chloe Liese, which is the 6th book in the series, and it is a brother's best friend and is utterly delightful with great ASD and chronic illness rep, and it is a sports romance. It's hockey and soccer, and just delightful. I can explain it more than that, but I'm also like, it's Chloe Liese. It stands on its own as being awesome.
I love Ziggy so much.
Great dating, yeah. Ziggy is the best, and I was so glad we finally got her book.
I loved how the hero just wanted, like, he didn't want to clean up his act at all until he met Ziggy, and then he's like, but for you, I will.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it was an interesting take on like it wasn't fake dating, it was like fake friendship or something.
It was fake friendship to fake friendship to kind of fake relationship to real relationship.
Right. I liked her take on those. It made it interesting. And oh my gosh, the beginning, the meet cute with the underwear.
Oh my
Yes.
God, so good.
Loved it. Him dressing up as her favorite character. Stop.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. Obviously, I love that book, but my Y book is my favorite book of the year so far, and it probably will be my favorite book. It is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Obsessed with this book. I love the first book. Please read the first book first, which is Part of Your World. I promise it's so freaking amazing. But this book in particular, the anxiety representation, I have never related to more. Like the hero has anxiety and he's like, no one writes a cinnamon roll hero like Abby Jimenez. And I just love all of her cinnamon roll heroes. In the first book, you have a cinnamon roll hero too, but they're both doctors. The heroine, I am obsessed with her. I love her personality. I loved her in the first book. They're both doctors, ER doctors. And there's like note writing back and forth in the beginning, and just how she is with him, even though she doesn't have anxiety, how she understands, like she may not empathize, but she sympathizes with his anxiety and helps him in a lot of little ways that mean a lot to someone who has anxiety. This is fake dating as well. You have like a crazy family in the background. It's just so good. And this was one of the very few books that I sobbed while reading it. I actually only sobbed because of the last part of it, which was the author's note, because I just related so much to it. But it's so good. This whole series is everything to me.
I'm still scared to read this one.
I mean, you probably should be. You will cry. I'm positive you will cry. To me, it was a pick-me-up book, but to other people,
just be a puddle afterwards.
Yeah.
Mine's a bit of a stretch, but I want to talk about it. It's Friendly Fire by Saxon James. It does have a Y in it. But this is
Barely.
barely has a Y in it.
It's mentally go hunting for it.
Well, it's on my mind. This is the last book in a series, but they're all standalones, and this is a childhood friends to lovers romance. And our hero Rath has been in this long-term relationship with his high school sweetheart, and he's not happy. He is struggling a lot because he feels broken, and through this friendship that he kind of this guy that he reconnects with, he discovers his asexuality. And he ends up getting out of the relationship that is kind of sucking the soul from him. And him and her go back to being friends. And he ends up falling in love with his best friend, who has kind of always had feelings for him. And what I loved so much about this one is Rafe's internal dialogue about his asexuality. And he talks often in here about how sex is something that he can enjoy in the moment, but it is not something that he will ever seek out. And he says, like, I could live without this for the rest of my life, but he can't live without his partner. And his partner's love language is touch. And so they still have a physical relationship. And if you read the reviews for this book, there are a lot of Elle reviewers that talk about how bad the asexuality rep in here is, because he wasn't always having a good time, which he says multiple times that he was. It was all consensual, but it is something that he does specifically to feel close to his partner emotionally and not for a physical release. And it is one of my favorite asexual representations ever. And I actually messaged Saxon James afterwards about it. So it is a book I wanted to talk about because I felt very strongly about it after I read it.
Oh, I love
I
that.
need to read that series.
I have You're Mine Wife by Isla Chu. This is a over-the-top alpha, you're not divorcing me novella. And that's really all there is to it. It's short, and he's like, no.
He's like, no, that's her description.
I love you. You just don't know it. For
Actually,
reasons.
I like that cover. That model is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right, Zed, I feel like we're doing really well here, guys. Well done.
Let's go.
Not anywhere near the 4-hour mark.
We weren't near the 4-hour mark last time.
I mean,
I was stretching here and I had to go into my sci-fi romances. So this is Azari by Lana Jan, and it is a sci-fi romance. It is a small town in space that they decide to have a 1920s themed Valentine's Day extravaganza.
What?
Complete with flapper dresses and mobsters. And it's the relationship between the town mayor and the town librarian. And that's about all there is to it.
Aliens dressing up in 1920s garb.
Sounds adorable.
Yes.
It does.
The fact that it's a blue alien with suspenders on the cover is really...
Is that a hot air balloon in the corner?
So I hope it is.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh no, I think it's a chocolate dipped strawberry.
Yeah, it looks like
Okay.
I was hoping it was a hot air balloon too.
That makes more sense.
Anyway, I love it.
Of
There
all
we
the
go. I'm ending on a light note. Okay.
All right. So mine has not one, not two, but three Z's on the cover, although it's not in the beginning. It's Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake by Maisie Eddings. So this one is, I think it's the second book in the series, the Brush with Love series, but you can absolutely read this as a standalone. I think she's friends with the heroine from the first book. But this one has ADHD rep in it, and it plays a very prominent part. I'm pretty sure it's own voices for that. But this is, I should have known going into it, considering the title of this book, but it is a surprise pregnancy. And Heather, like you were talking about in that book, the caretaking during pregnancy happens in this book, but it was like a one-night stand. And he was visiting from Australia, and then he goes back, and then she finds out that she's pregnant. And then he's like pretty much like trying to do anything he's like, what can I do like to help and stuff? And then turns into something more. But I thought it was really, really good. I'd be very curious to see how the rep was. I'm assuming that it's really good because, you know, I think it's own voices, like I said. And honestly, I related to a lot of the things that Lizzie does. So I was kind of like, this is very familiar.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Mine is another lighthearted one. It's A Pizza My Heart by Tegan Hunter. And this is a really goofy rom-com series that is following childhood best friends. The hero was in California. He was married. He gets a divorce, pretty messy divorce. And he ends up moving back to their like small town. And the heroine and her family run this pizza parlor. And the two of them have a romance. And it is so corny and cheesy and adorable. The original cover, if you go to book details and editions on there, that original cover is actually Tegan Hunter's husband's best friend. And he actually dated her for a little while after this photo shoot. Fun fact.
Aww.
Can I just say, Tegan, because I've been reading some of Tegan Hunter's hockey books, and I'm surprised she doesn't get talked about as much.
Yeah, her books are really funny.
They are really well written and very funny.
Get Textual is still one of like those series that like I don't know how people haven't read it.
I think I read the first book in that series, but I hadn't moved on in the.
It's one of those series that you could just like put on and listen to, and it's so funny, and just her humor is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Steph, what's the name of the hockey series?
Carolina Comets.
Okay.
Izzy and I are both reading it. Izzy's read a little bit more in the series. I started at book 5 and 6, and now I need to go back and read the previous books.
Okay.
Just adding it to my TBR over here is fine.
I know, me too.
Izzy's favorite in the series so far is book 2 of the Carolina Comets. I can't remember what it's called. But
Blind Pass.
Blind Pass, yeah.
Mine is Love for My Zombie Kings by Liese McCoy. This is also a recommendation from Tracy. And this is wild.
Tell me more.
This is like, so the world is overtaken by zombies, and there are some graphic zombie things. No, not like continuously, but when they happen, you're like, oh. So anyways, the world is like overrun by zombies, and they kill people, and yeah, like they're they're terrible, right? And she is working in some sort of lab. I don't remember what lab, but then they like capture this zombie that's not like the rest. And they are like running all these experiments on him and stuff. And he is just like tracking her with his eyes. Well, turns out he's like, they're like a super family of zombies, and she's gonna be their zombie queen. And it's like 5 brothers or 4 brothers, and like she has a why choose romance with all of them, and then they like birth the superior zombie race to take over the world. So and it's black love, and it's like zombie shifters also, so they like shift into these like zombie forms that like the skin like flakes off and stuff. Like they also have like more humanoid. It's a time. It was creative, and I just feel like it's an experience that more people should have.
I'm in.
I like how we all ended on a fairly relatively light note.
Yeah. You gotta search for those Z ones.
Yeah, the Z's were hard.
We dug deep for.
We did good.
Oh,
Look, I think we're basically on par with timing from the first one, so well done.
the last one felt so much longer for some reason.
It was not that long when I went back to look at the time of it or the length of it.
And you tell Megan I said so.
I also did manage to write down all of your books, so I will be able to upload those to the description later.
Wow, you did a lot. You did the most.
Yeah.
I would not add all those to the description. I'd be like,
I'm not
on your
linking
own.
them.
There's no chance I'm adding all those.
I can literally copy and paste it.
What is 26 times 4? 104? No. No.
I was struggling to add my 30 books to my TBR video. It's just like, why did I talk about so many books?
I know. I feel like anything over 7,
Oh.
I'm regretting my life choices so much.
Anything over 10, and you're lucky if I'll link them, but I will always put the list and just the title and the author, which I've done. So I just have to copy and paste it.
My C an ebook. C was Coming Home by Kennedy Ryan, and E was Egotistical Puckboy by Eden Finlay and Saxon James.
Very good series. That series is just hilarious.
It's so funny. The second one is my favorite because it's 2 himbos, and they accidentally get married in Vegas because they don't think that you can actually get married in Vegas. And one of them just wants to try it out.
Oh no.
And then they have to actually be married because it obviously turns into a PR nightmare. They're both hockey players for the same hockey team. Great.
Good trip.
It's another friends being friends. The one guy just always wants to cuddle, and like he crawls into bed with his best friend, and his friend is like, dude, friends don't do this. I need you to know that.
Do you know what? The in packing around, because Jake and Caleb are really good friends and have been friends for a really long time, and they live together. Everyone on their team refers to them as house husbands.
Yeah.
And it's like literally everyone around them is like, where's your house husband?
Cute.
Like, they all assume that there is a relationship until there
Yeah.
is actually a relationship.
Tracy said I've added 27 books to my TBR.
Well
I mean, honestly, same. I need to go in and see how many I added.
Look, I won't lie and say that I wasn't thinking going, oh, there's a potential vlog idea here of reading a book from every letter that I haven't read yet.
Tracy, like just last night, I think it was last night, right? Tracy was telling me that like a book I talked about was going to the top of her TBR right after her 20 Kindle Unlimited checkouts. And I was like, I do not believe you, lady. And now you just added 27.
Listen, you don't know how many books are on the top of her TBR. She didn't say how many books are on the top of her TBR. She just said it was
I will be surprised if we get there quickly.
But Steph, your R book needs to be Restore Me. I cannot believe you haven't read that yet.
I think because everyone loved it. Like if everyone I know loves it,
That's fair.
I'll do it.
it takes me a really long time to get back around to it.
Her books are long too. Like
Yeah.
that second book is 3 books long, and all of them are like 600 pages.
I can guarantee you, if I read the first one, I will not be reading the rest of it because I'm.
I was like, I've heard they're so good. Like everyone that I talked to on Instagram keeps telling me to keep reading, but I'm just like,
It's good, but it doesn't compare to the first book. Nothing can compare to that first book. It's just, and it didn't feel long.
yeah.
Like, and I listened to that audiobook that was not good. And it's still,
I eventually stopped because I was just like,
oh, I don't bring
like a
people.
robot.
I know, it's so robotic.
And it was weird because the male narrator was really good.
Yeah,
It was just like, what happened?
I know. And then unfortunately, that female narrator has been cast, so
I already have Vicious Devotion and Pucking Around on my TBR for the last 3 months that are long books that I haven't read. So
You and me both.
Around
At
it.
least with Vicious Devotion, that book is going to be the actual death of me.
it's going to follow me to my grave at this point.
oh, my great.
I've committed to like reading it for our blog this month, and I'm not enthused, even though I know I'm sure like I'll like it.
I'm like, I know I'm
Tracy
gonna
already read Vicious Devotion, so she doesn't have to add that to her TBR. She said it was fine though, which was not helpful.
just fine, but it has a rabbit in it, which is why I haven't read it yet.
I was like, ah.
A rabbit shifter. What's sexy about a
We
rabbit?
need a lot more enthusiastic recommendation from you to try and pick it up.
Now we just need to all convince Heather to read Hoof.
I'm not reading Hoof. I'm not doing it.
I need you to, Heather. I need this
For science.
If I
need to know where is it located.
I feel like the only way I would do that is if it was like a rant video that got demonetized because I was.
How, wait, how
To
long?
be honest, I'm just interested in how quickly she DNFs it.
How many pages is it?
When I tell you, it's not super long, but I don't want to read it.
But how many pages is it? Because does it need to be a live reading? Is what I'm saying.
I think it's too long for that.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, I need to know how it all works. I need to know where she decided things like that.
I don't.
Inquiring minds need to know where is it located.
How does it work?
I do not need to know. That is the truth. I don't need to know.
I need to know. I need you to know.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You may not want to know, but we need you to know.
Like, I don't really care that much, but I care about you knowing.
It's on her Patreon right now.
Is it?
It's only 17,000 words though, so maybe it is short enough.
Maybe it's the live reading.
Goldilocks model? What's happening?
All right. Well, since we have been online for nearly 3 hours, we should probably start wrapping this up because you guys need to go to bed. I know it's a long weekend, but
Yes.
sleep is important.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for another round of this special brand of chaos. I think we got a lot of really good.
I think so.
And
Because we always have
thanks.
more books to read, so it's a good thing we did this.
Yes.
And thank you for everyone who is in the chat and chatting to us about the books and recommending other ones as well. This is good because it means I don't have to share my next individual one for a little while. It counts. All right. Have a really good night or a good day, depending on where you are. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.